Yes, I can.
Okay, Chris, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you.
Is the volume good for you guys?
For me it is. Okay.
Let's see.
For me, it's a little bit echoey.
Okay, you need to turn your volume down. And try again.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I turned mine down too to see if that helps. Does that help with the echoing as well?
We're not hearing an echo. I think it's on his end.
Actually, I can hear Lori clear as a bell, but it's coming out of the room that's a little bit echoey, I guess.
Okay, I think that we're ready to call the meeting of the Smyth County Board of Supervisors to order. I'd like to welcome everyone in attendance. We have two board members that are attending through technological means. We have Chris Ratliff and Lori Deal, who are attending remotely. And we'd also like to welcome those who may be viewing online. Today we will have a pledge of allegiance by Lisa Richardson, Assistant County Administrator. And then we are pleased to be able to welcome Pastor Justin Hall of Cedar Bluff Baptist Church in Athens, who will provide the invocation for our meeting. Lisa? You will please stand? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, as I stand to pray for our elected officials, I am reminded that you called them your ministers, that you ordained government officials to execute justice and to ensure certain civil liberties. I pray for them as you commanded, that we as citizens might lead quiet and peaceable lives in all godliness and sincerity, undisturbed and unintruded. Father, I take encouragement tonight in knowing that their hearts are in your hand. And as you said, the heart of the king is in your hand, and you can turn it in any direction you want. And so I pray tonight that you would give them wisdom as they govern, as they legislate, as they execute. Not as those who will give an account simply to constituents, but to those who will give an account to their Creator. Father, I commit this meeting to you, and I ask that you would be the overruler of everything that is done here. I pray for your blessing upon these officials and their families, and I pray, Lord, that you would give grace to Smyth County and to all of its citizens, especially during this time. And I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Next on the agenda by the members, we have two different dates to approve. The first one is November 12th of 2020. Are there any comments or revisions? Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Do we need to do a roll call vote since we have been attending remotely?
I'm sorry?
Since we have two remotely, do we need to do roll call vote? Or?
I don't know how many interrupting or not.
Yeah.
Is the sound system not on?
I don't hear, it doesn't seem like Jenny's working. Test.
Oh, push the button.
Okay.
There you
Very
go. I forgot to tell you that, I'm sorry.
So can we just do by hand?
You can do raise hands or a roll call vote, either one.
Okay, well, all in favor?
Can you hear now, Lori? I'm gonna say hearing.
I think we might need to do a roll call. The clerk
I
will
heard
now do,
that, but I didn't hear the rest of it. I have no idea what we're doing.
we're approving the minutes for November the 12th, 2020. We have a motion and a second, and we're taking a vote. I think it might be better to do roll call. Sean or Lisa, do you want to do that?
I will be happy to. Mr. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Sturgill?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson?
Yes.
Dr. Ratcliffe?
Yes.
Ms. Wyatt?
Yes.
Ms. Deal?
Yes,
Mr. Call?
Yes.
Okay, next we have the minutes for the November 19th, 2020 meeting. Do we have any comments or revisions? If not, do we have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. A roll call vote, please.
Mr. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Sturgill?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson?
Understand.
Dr. Ratcliffe?
Yes.
Ms. Wyatt?
Yes.
Ms. Deal?
yes,
Mr. Call?
The motion passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is a financial report from Lisa Richardson.
Madam Chairman, I don't have a lot of information today, just due to the treasurer's office not having their financial records prepared, of course, due to COVID-19 and the shortage of staff and the issues that are going on there. So I don't have records from their office.
Okay.
I do, however, have an expenditure and a revenue summary there for your review. And is the first one of the expenditure, Christie? Okay. The first one is an expenditure summary. You should have a copy there in front of you. And if you just refer to the last page, page 5, it shows expenditures from July 1, 2020 to December 8, 2020. The current amount of expenditures is $3,852,354.96, with a year-to-date expended amount of $30,045,612.32, with a remaining balance in the budget of $66,901,718.68. The next report you should have there is the revenue summary. This is revenue taken in from July 1, 2020 to today, December 8, 2020. The current amount for December is $11,243,449.09, with the year-to-date being $38,137,847.89, with a remaining $58,809,483.11 in the remaining budget. And that's all I have for the financial documents. And we did receive those from the treasurer's office. I can make sure that we all receive a copy for the email.
Thank you, Lisa. Do we have any questions or comments to the board? If not, we'll continue on. Next is the payment of invoices. And we have members of the board this at your desk. The first appropriation is for the general county in the amount of $1,800,000.
Move to approve. Second.
I guess we'll do a roll call vote again, Sean.
Mr. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Sturgill?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson?
Yes.
Dr. Ratcliffe?
Yes.
Ms. Wyatt?
Yes.
Ms. Deal?
yes,
Mr. Call? Yes.
Next, we have the appropriation for social services in the amount of $470,000.
Move to approve.
A motion, is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Rudd, if you do roll call.
Mr. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Sturgill?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson?
Yes.
Dr. Ratcliffe?
Yes.
Ms. Wyatt?
Yes.
Ms. Deal?
Yes.
Mr. Call? Yes.
Next, we have the school operating fund. The total school operating fund is $3,915,000.
So moved.
A motion, a second.
Second.
A roll call vote, please.
Mr. Atkins? Yes. Mr. Sturgill?
Abstain.
Mr. Stevenson?
Yes.
Dr. Ratliff?
Yes.
Ms. Wyatt?
Yes.
Ms. Deal?
Yes.
Mr. Call? Yes.
Next, we have the school debt and capital outlay in the amount of $1,500.
Move to approve, Madam Chairman.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Atkins? Yes. Mr. Sturgill?
Abstain.
Mr. Stevenson?
Yes.
Dr. Ratliff?
Yes.
Ms. Wyatt?
Yes.
Ms. Deal?
Yes.
Mr. Call?
Next, we have the Sheriff's Department Fund 748 in the amount of $1,282.33.
Move to approve. Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Sorry, Mr. Atkins? Yes. Mr. Sturgill?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson?
Yes.
Dr. Ratliff?
Yes.
Ms. Wyatt?
Yes.
Ms. Deal?
Yes.
Mr. Call? Yes.
Next, we have the Recovery Court Fund 749 in the amount of $177.23.
Move to approve. Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Atkins? Yes. Mr. Sturgill?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson?
Yes.
Dr. Ratliff?
Yes.
Ms. Wyatt?
Yes.
Ms. Deal?
Yes.
Mr. Call? Yes.
Next, we have the Recovery Court Fund. I'm sorry. Next, we have the Fund 775 Broadband Cares Fund in the amount of $313,592.
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Atkins? Yes. Mr. Sturgill?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson?
Yes.
Dr. Ratliff?
Yes.
Ms. Wyatt?
Yes.
Ms. Deal?
Yes.
Mr. Call? Yes.
That completes financial appropriation. Next on the agenda is citizens' time. Has anyone signed up to speak? Thank you. First is Dr. Charles Watson.
Is it on? Oh, I got the on.
Heather,
Huh?
is it? Heather will check it. Take a look at them. This is all new tonight, so
Oh.
kind of our first experience with it.
Thank everyone for your patience.
Yeah.
Yes. It's on. It was on mute.
Time's up.
Yes. Sorry.
Bad thing about masks, you can't see me smile when I say that.
It's hanging over here, but.
Yeah, that one, well, I don't know if it'll pick it up in the sound system, that's just the recorder.
Again, we appreciate your patience. We'll because all the bugs worked out. Charlie, you have a strong voice. Do you think it might carry with that microphone?
I don't know. Is it not gonna get
I
fixed
don't
or?
know.
Step back in and use one of
Yeah, that
those.
one?
That would be
If you don't
fine.
mind having your back there.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's not off the side.
You don't mind just putting in, say your name and address? Yes,
It's
push,
just, you're on.
yeah, push the button, yeah, there it is.
Okay. You want to put my back to me, okay. My name is Charles Blossom. I live in Wasana. I've been a resident of Marion off and on for all of my life. For 21 Wasana Circle. But I was here last meeting, when several people from JSEP spoke about what they want to do, and they had a resolution. I never did I asked for a resolution, but I didn't, what their resolution was that they presented, but I didn't get a copy until here recently, so really haven't had time to think it through. But the resolution is a resolution in support of the constitutional right of unity and equality. That was what this group spoke about. I just wanted to say a few words and ask a few questions, because I think I just want to say a few words about the resolution and ask a few questions. I don't necessarily expect to get any answers tonight, but I guess my objective in being here is there's a lot I don't understand about the resolution, because some of the phrasing is not accurate, and some of the words are not properly defined. Some of the sentences don't completely make sense to me. And I think it's a type of a resolution this group is asking you to sign, which requires a little bit more thought and a little bit more study, and getting the viewpoint of a lot of different people. The copy that I have of the resolution, which was on page 47 that I have, attachment 10 of your packet, on page 47, you have the resolution here. And then down at the bottom is Judy Wyant's chair, shown clerk. On the agenda tonight, I didn't know whether this old business 3A or 3B, Unity Day follow-up, I didn't know whether that's supposed to be voting on the resolution tonight or just discussing it or taking it from there. So, I just wonder who, from the way the resolution looks, it looks like Judy Wyant wrote it, and Sean Utt attests that she wrote it, but I wonder who wrote it, and if the board, the Smyth County Board of Supervisors has read it, and if Judy signs it, Chairman Wyant signs it, Does that mean everybody agrees and that goes out as representative of all Smith County?
Sean, do you want to address some of this?
Yes, ma'am. So I wrote it,
Okay.
and it's her, Ms. Wyatt's signature only occurs after the Board of Supervisors fully adopt the resolution. Ms. Wyatt, I'm talking to her today or yesterday, I did mess up by putting 8th day of December, assuming it would be adopted tonight. It doesn't necessarily have to be adopted tonight.
Okay.
I did speak with several of the board members as we went through the drafting process and edited as we went. So this is certainly not the first, maybe even not the 10th rendition, but this is the one that we're looking at tonight.
Okay, well, thank you. I know, I was here, Trayvon Brown spoke, and a number of other people spoke, about it, but we never saw it. I do remember the question, one of the supervisors had Supervisor Stevenson, he, asked about a pamphlet that they had passed around, and it didn't seem to, the unity part didn't seem to include really everybody. It didn't seem to include white males, as a matter of fact. It included everybody else of all sorts of persuasions and colors and whatnot, but it didn't include white males. Trayvon Brown seemed a little bit neutral on the subject, but one of the board members of JSTEP said, no, we have it written the way we want it, and we're not going to change it. So that was kind of a red flag for me. It kind of bothered me a little bit. I don't think it's a resolution that can be read over once or twice and then just signed, because there's just too much in there, too much information that needs to be known. The other question I had, Mr. Brown talked about, and others have talked about, once they get resolutions from a lot of people in Southwest Virginia, then they're going to send it to the state legislature to kind of create the appearance of popular support for legislation in Richmond, kind of like the police immunity thing. If you get enough people out here calling for it, then legislatures in Richmond are going to want to deal with it and pass it. As I read it and think about it, there's an underlying assumption that in Smyth County and in Southwest Virginia, there is a big problem with racism. And it's just something that I don't see, experience, or feel. We have black people in our church. We have this one black person in our church. He said, I'm a black racist. I don't like white people. But the resolution is a little bit squishy on whether we're talking about white racism or black racism. I've lived among black people in the Congo. I've lived among Haitians in Montreal, and never had a problem. Always got along good, except when I went to certain areas in the city we were in the Congo, people beat on your car and they didn't treat you nice. So I mean, there's white racism, there's black racism. I just don't think there's that much of a problem that I've seen in Smyth County. My son grew up, went through high school with one of the nicest families, the Purefoy family. Darren Purefoy was his best friend. Evelyn Lawrence, you couldn't ask for, nicer people. Maybe they experienced racism, I don't know, but it never came from me. And I know it probably never came from most people in Smyth County. I think we've got a wonderful group of people here in Smyth County, and to have to sign a resolution like this, it's kind of trying to put a guilt feeling on you. So, what's the purpose of the resolution? Is it supposed to create support for legislation in Richmond? So that's one question. Another one, what do they mean by unity, equality, collective prosperity, and justice? Those have different definitions according to your political persuasion. And you can go up and do a search on equality, and one of the searches is equality is kind of the core concept of socialism. So I don't think everybody in Smyth County is a socialist. So I don't think they would relate that well to this resolution. But these words can be put in, maybe some of you here have ever read Animal Farm, written by George Orwell. He wrote 1984. But in Animal Farm, you had a farmer, he was living high on the hog. This is really the truth. He was living high on the hog because he had all the pigs out there doing his work and whatnot, and then he'd eat some, And as the pigs got pretty sad, mad, they wanted to revolt, so they said that we hate the farmer, we're gonna overthrow him. They overthrew the farmer, and then a small group of pigs, after they'd overthrown him, they started living high on the hog. And the other pigs said, hey, what's going on here? We thought we were getting justice when we overthrew the farmer. And they said, yeah, you are. The thing is, some pigs are more equal than other pigs. So that's kind of the take I take on some of these particular words here. One flaw that I see in the resolution is support of the constitutional right of unity and equality. Well, the flaw in that is, in 1775, 76, the American colonies declared their independence, and they wrote the Declaration of Independence, and they said, we hold these truths to be self-evident, all men are created equal, but they're endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. And then a few years later, they wrote the Constitution to protect those rights. You don't have any rights that come from the Constitution. Your rights come from God. The right to keep and bear arms, that's a right that the government doesn't have anything to do with it. It doesn't come from the Constitution. It's there to protect the Constitution is there to protect that right. The Constitution of the State of Virginia, which every board member signs a pledge to support the Constitution of Virginia and the United States. The first clause in the Bill of Rights of the Constitution of Virginia addresses the equality issue. All men are by nature equally free and independent and have certain inherent rights. So we're equally free. We're born equally in God's eyes, and we should be treated equal by the law, is what they mean. But the equality that we hear a lot talk about today is not talking about that, because we have got innumerable laws guaranteeing equality and non-discrimination. So I think there's kind of a problem with that. There are a number of other problems in the resolution, things that are hard to kind of understand. But I guess my closing comment would be, if any member of the Board of Supervisors wanted to sign this as an individual, hey, that's great. But to do it as a board, when there are all these questions that are out there in my mind and in the minds of other people, if they would read it, if they had read it, if they had a copy of it, if they'd ever seen it, if they'd ever known about it. I doubt if anybody in the county ever even knows about it, except people who, follow this sort of stuff. So I'd say, if you support it, get your own stationery, write your own name, and then give it to Trayvon Brown or whoever you want to. But as a Board of Supervisors, I don't think you have the authority to sign this as representing everybody in the county when nobody in the county has a copy of it. Nobody in the county knows anything about it. What everybody in the county does know, or people that study it and read it, they know that you took an oath to obey the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of Virginia. That is your only duty in this county. But this resolution wants you to correct racism and all these other problems in the county, in the state, in the nation, and it just goes beyond your authority. So I think this could be reworked. Maybe this could be a public hearing or something like that, where some alternate resolutions could be offered, so you'd have something to choose.
Right.
So that's pretty much.
Well, Dr. Lawson, you certainly made some very valid and insightful comments.
But read your constitutions
and Mr. It is a stamped draft, so I know it's a work in process.
Yes, ma'am.
And perhaps, as we move through this process, we can get a little bit more refined with
It is later in the agenda.
what the intent is. Thank you, Dr. Watson. Next on the list for citizens' time is the Salt Rescue Squad.
Good evening, Board. Just wanted to give you an update tonight. I'm sorry I missed last meeting. Actually, I was here on Tuesday, didn't have a meeting on Thursday. But I do have October's profit and loss report if I can approach. Right now, we are in the process, we have adopted a family to do buy Christmas for the children, as we have done in the last 3 years. We're also involved with the, shop with the first responder. That's gonna be on December 12th. That's a thing that Walmart does, and all the first responders, police, fire, EMS, and whatnot, throughout the county, get together. We're gonna get together on December 12th. We'll purchase, or we'll go through and shop for what the children want. This year it's gonna be a little different. Last year we actually took the children around. This year we're not. We will be going in and buying it, and then they'll drive through and get, do the social distancing. But we're really excited about being involved in that. I did it last year. Excuse me. We had a lot of fun doing it with the kids. This October, is starting to show some of the, hits that I mentioned in months prior to this with the COVID, issues. Those calls from those months where our calls were down are starting to show up now. But the last 2 months, or 3 months, excuse me, we're averaging over 90 calls a month. So our calls have increased, so we'll start in 4 or 5 months, we'll recoup from that. So, as you look at this.
What percentage increase is that from the average?
About 30%.
Okay.
We were running 60, 65 calls, now we're running 90.
Wow.
Last month we ran 89, we transported 62.
Is this due to COVID related?
Yeah, yes ma'am. Other than that, don't have a lot to bring forward to you other than, of course you guys know about the new truck. We've have partnered with the town of Saltville, and I will find out either tonight or on 10th the exact amount of COVID money that they had to help us with, but we'll be purchasing a new monitor with that COVID money, and also possibly a Lucas device, an auto pulse, which is a CPR machine that wraps around you rather than the Lucas, which goes directly in your chest. We kind of liked it better because it's more compression, full compression, and also for people my size, the Lucas doesn't fit where the auto pulse does. We'll hopefully going to be able to have enough left over to purchase one of those and maybe some more PPE equipment for the squad. Last I heard on the amount was around $35,000 to $40,000, but we're not sure exactly. They were waiting on one more bill that they had to pay to let us know exactly how much they were going to be able to afford to give us. In saying that, I would like for the I'm sorry, I thought somebody said in saying that, I would like for the board to consider, maybe in February, we're going to be doing a grant in February for a second monitor. So I'd like for the board to consider helping with that and thinking about that from here to there in maybe February. I'll come back and we'll talk more about it. But to help us purchase a second monitor. Right now, the quote I have is about $29,000 and some change. Ballard has a 80-20 thing they're doing with us. So it's only going to cost us $24,000 and some change.
Mr. Is that something that would go to our safety committee?
Which?
This request for,
We can do it either through the budget committee or the public safety committee, either one.
The one thing I noticed is there is a little bit of a deficit on this statement.
Yes, ma'am.
And do you anticipate that will be corrected maybe in the future?
Yes, it was already corrected somewhat in November, and we're going to run some months in the deficit. Like this one here, the vehicle maintenance run us a lot more.
Right.
When we are granted the new truck, that will cut down on the vehicle maintenance severely.
Right.
Because our vehicles are old right now. They're 8, 10, and 12 years old. So they're going to require maintenance each month. This month just happens to be a bigger expense than normal. And also, for some reason, I'm not sure how things got turned around, but you see on the internet service and the telephone service, they were both paid for 2 months at a time, September and October. Right now, as of this past Tuesday, when we had our board meeting, we were right at $67,000 in the bank.
Good.
Although we are showing some loss on these reports, we are still maintaining well above what we had this time last year.
That's great.
This time last year, I believe we were down to what, $2,000 or $3,000.
It was critical.
Yes, it was very
Yeah,
critical.
really good important.
So we are maintaining that, yes, ma'am.
Well, once again, we appreciate you coming and giving the board a regular report. And we commend you on the turnaround that's happening there in Southport, and that's taking a lot of dedication and hard work.
Well, thank you.
And we
And
commend you.
I will mention, and I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I was told by someone, last week, that, the communication between the town, us and the town, and us and the board of supervisors has improved over the last year and a half. And they commended us on that, and I commend you guys on that also, because you guys are communicating with us as well as we are communicating with you guys. And we appreciate you guys.
I think that's where we see progress when we all communicate more to it.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So, well, thank you once again. Oscar, you're a member of this. Do you have anything to say?
Yes, I do. This Thanksgiving. I apologize, I hadn't been able to get to some of the board meetings. I am a board member. Had a lot of stuff going on here lately, pacemakers and everything, blood pressures, but family issues. But I will improve and I'll be at the next one. And I miss them.
Well, we miss you too.
We have a good time
Yes, we do.
and we get a lot done.
We have.
I'll always be proud of these things. Always.
Well, thank you. If nothing else, I'll turn it back over to you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for all the hard work you're doing. Okay, next on the agenda is, the resolution of appreciation for Ron Tomlinson. And Charlie, I know you're on that board, or Sean? Who wants the honor of?
Well, I think we have a,
In case you can see me, I'm reverse this. And, Ron is here tonight, and we appreciate you being here, and we have some of the board members from the tourism here also, but we have passed a, Smyth County Board of Supervisors, a resolution in recognition of Ron Tomlinson upon his retirement as Smyth County Director of Tourism. Whereas Ron Tomlinson served as the cabinetry plant manager for Maryland Industries, helping recruit, build, and grow 2 facilities in Smyth County. And whereas following retirement from Maryland, Ron Tomlinson stepped back into the workforce to help Smyth County as the first Director of Tourism, a part-time role with a full-time commitment to build tourism as a vital industry in Smyth County. And whereas Ron Tomlinson was instrumental in community tourism initiatives, including the Fly Fishing Trail and annual Trout Unlimited Fishing event, Smyth County's present at national and regional travel shows, the ongoing operation of Smyth County Visitor Center at the Barn House, and whereas Ron Tomlinson's crowning achievement is the development, promotion, and growth of the Back of the Dragon and the new Walker Mountain Overlook, where he secured over $800,000 in grant funding and land rights to build a unique addition to help propel this attraction to national attention. And whereas Ron Tomlinson is an avid golfer, traveler, and a West Virginia mountaineer, now therefore be it resolved for the Board of Supervisors of Smyth County, Virginia, that we hereby express our most sincere appreciation for the leadership provided by Ron Tomlinson through his talents, hard work, stewardship, skill, and love of our town and county, and wish him well in his retirement. Adopted this 8th day of December, 2020. And we have a plaque here today.
signed version, but you want to do the motion second.
I make the motion that we approve this resolution wholeheartedly.
I second it.
We need a roll call vote again.
I'll take care of it. Mr. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Sturgill?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson?
Yes.
Dr. Rattler?
Yes.
Ms. Wyatt?
Yes.
Ms. Deal?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yeah.
I don't know if we can get too close, but you want to come up and, you want the rest of the board, the other board members that are on the tourism board? to
Wouldn't
join us?
hurt.
I think that would be great.
Jim and Mayor, Trish. And this to me doesn't say near as much as what Ron has done for tourism in the county, but we can't begin to say it all. We thank you. Mayor?
I'm fine.
There she's with a picture. Thank you. Ron, thank you.
Charles, I would have, excuse me, I'll get there. I would never have expected this. I came here 43 years ago as a 34-year-old young man, and the whole reason I got here was one of the greatest entrepreneurs ever in America, Orville Maryland, hired me to build a world-class plant somewhere in the eastern United States. And I looked at over 50 buildings throughout the eastern United States, from east of the Mississippi, about 100 sites, and it came down to one thing. It came down to the people of Smyth County, but the big part of it had to do with the Board of Supervisors. At that time, in 1977, Marvin Perry was the county, he was the chairman of the Board of Supervisors at one time, but he was the county administrator. And you will not believe the cooperation that we had from not only Marvin, but all the board members on the board at that time. The only reason I say this is that I can only tell you, it makes a difference. This board can make a real difference in bringing the county out of its doldrums of growth that we saw back in the late 70s and 80s and 90s. And I cannot begin to tell you how important it is for that. Now, why am I saying that? After we built the first plant, there was a need for a second plant. Mr. Verlette and I talked about it, and he said, "What do you think, Ron?" I said, "Well, what do you think?" He said, "Those people are great. If you want to do it in Smyth County, we'll do it in Smyth County." Only because the county, everybody in the county, the town of Marion, all the towns, and the Board of Supervisors worked so diligently with me throughout that period before we ever built the second plant. There was no question we were going to do it. So my only point, even in saying this, is just to tell you, you can really make a difference. When you're looking at a prospect, working with a prospect,
it's amazing what you can do. Marvin Perry was absolutely awesome. And in that first 10 years of being at Barrowland, I would say Marvin Perry was in my office at least once and maybe twice a month. And the reason he was there is to, what can I do for you? How can I help you? So all I'm just trying to say to you, I hope that as you go forward now, you'll really work together with the towns. I mean, cause, the towns are, they're really interested in working together. And I can't tell you how important that is. It's just like the tourism initiative. When I became the chairman of the tourism center, the director, there wasn't enough money for me to do anything. The budget at that time was so limited, there wasn't a lot I could do. But what I said, Ron, what are you going to do? So what do? I go to Abington, I go to Whittle, I go to Grayson County, and I say, here's some things we can do together, because tourism is regional. It's not just Marion or Chilhowie or Saltville. It's Smyth County, Abington, Grayson County, and Abington. So what do? We work together. We started getting grants together because the grant program is a three-team program. It's together. And through that, by doing that, we were able to get grants. We were able to get money. Consequently, we were able to do brochures. We were able to go to all the shows throughout the country and put Smyth County on the map. People began to know about Smyth County. But I could have never done it by myself. And I could have never done it without the mayor, Jim Kelly. And now we got a new board member. I see sitting over there, Trish, Charles. They were so supportive of me and what I was trying to accomplish through all the togetherness of the 4 counties. So consequently, why did I do this for 10 years? I ain't planned to do this. But we started to make things happen, and I just wanted to continue to see if we couldn't build upon this. And with your support through all of this, it allowed me to make this happen and to make this a great tourism initiative. And as somebody mentioned in the resolution, the overlook. Yeah, I spent 6 years. I spent 6 years going to the VDOT 6-year planning things to convince them that this was a spot in Smyth County. It was beautiful. It would draw a lot of people and be a big thing for a motorcycle initiative. And finally one day, the commissioner, Kirkpatrick, came around and he said, "What are you doing back here again?" I said, "You know why I'm here." He said, "I think we can make this happen." And so Mr. Kirkpatrick had the Bristol people come. We had a meeting in this room, and he said, "Here's what we can do. VDOT will do 80, and you'll have to get your other 20. So the other 20, we went to the Tobacco Commission. So we got something like $900 and some $1,000. But the most important thing to all of you is to say, what a journey. 43 years that I was here, and one of the great things about the 43 years is guys like my former, I call him coach all the time, Mr. Kirk. He coached my children. And my son today talked about him. So all 3 of my sons got a great education. They're all in high executive levels. They wouldn't be there had got a good education in Smyth County. So it was a great place to come to, place to stay, place to take my journey. And I love Smyth County. And I can't begin to tell you what an honor. And thank you. I know I get emotional, but when you get to this point in your life, and something like this happens to you, it means so much. And thank you all. Thank you all so much. This guy over here, yeah, he sang at my son's wedding. And, you know, just how many people that I've been associated with in this county, and, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you all. And appreciate what you've done for me, and I'll touch 80 this year, but if I can help you, if there's anything I can do that might aid you in any way, I'll be more than happy to. And God bless all of you.
Mr. Thomason. On behalf of the board, it is our honor and privilege to acknowledge you
I can't hear you with the mask on.
and the contribution that you've made to this county throughout the years, not only in private industry, but also your time as tourism director. We certainly, I think most of us realize how important tourism is to this community and how much we have to offer. And thank you for taking years that you could have been at leisure to promote that and make growth here. And I hope that we will continue the groundwork that you have laid for that. We really hate to see you leave this area. We'd like to keep you here. But again, thank you, and you've been such a wonderful asset to
I
us.
can tell you how much I appreciate it, and I told Charlie that if there's anything I can do to aid, and the next person coming along, I'll be more than happy to do that. But now, as I told him, I think it's time. I'm going to spend the winter somewhere else.
Well, I don't blame you after today's cold weather, but I'm sure Charlie will be keeping in touch with you.
If I am going to, for that Christmas, I'm going to be gone for the rest of the back.
Well, we certainly wish you well, and we hope you'll come back often and visit.
Thank you. Thank all of y'all. Thank y'all so much. Appreciate it.
Next on the agenda is the audit presentation for the period ending June 30th, 2020. And we have Emily Byers with Robinson Farmer Cox.
Good evening. Thank you all for having me here. I hope that you can hear me okay with my mask on. My name is Emily Byers, and I'm the audit partner in charge on your audit engagement. I thought that we would do essentially what we've done in the past. We'll go over the larger handout file. I think you got a file in your board packet, and I passed one out to those of you that are here. So we'll go over this at a pretty high level. There's some new faces. So I just want to make sure that everybody knows where to find information in the financial statements if they're looking for it. We'll start on page 2. This is the independent auditor's report. This is essentially where we state whether we think that your financial statements are materially correct in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. You all have a clean, unmodified opinion. So that just means that we think that the numbers as presented are materially correct. So that's what you want in your audit opinion. On page 5 of the report are exhibits 1 and 2. These are entity-wide financial statements. So these have a long-term focus. They incorporate the governmental activities, business-type activities, which are your water and sewer funds. And it also includes information for your component units, which is the school board, the library, and the EDA. On exhibits 3 and 5, or pages 7 and 9, is your general fund financial statements. These are on the modified basis of accounting, so these are probably much closer, hopefully, to what you see on a month-to-month basis. These go out about 60 days from year end to record receivables and payables. So there's a much more near-term focus for you all. These are probably more useful if you're looking at budgeting and things like that. It takes out the effects of all the accrual adjustments. Exhibits 4 and 6 on pages 8 and 10 are meant to be a crosswalk to show you what long-term adjustments have been posted to get from the modified accrual statements to the full accrual statements. Exhibits 7, 8, and 9 on pages 11, 12, and 13 are the proprietary fund statements, so it's your balance sheet, income statement, and statement of cash flows for the water and sewer funds. It is presented here in one column. If you're looking at budgeting, it may be most useful to look at the cash flow statement, because here again, that takes out the effects of all the accrual adjustments and estimates that go into the balance sheet and income statement. The next section of the report starts on page 15. This is the notes to the financial statements. Essentially here, we provide some additional disclosures and information on what is making up the numbers that you see in the financial statements themselves, and then how estimates are derived and things like that. We're not going to go into too much detail with that. I'm going to jump all the way back to the back of the report. On page 134, this is what I refer to as the yellow book opinion. Here we take a look at your internal control structure and let you know if we've got any items that we identify as significant deficiencies or material weaknesses. And we also take a look at compliance in accordance with the APA specifications for counties, cities, and towns. We did not have any non-compliance that was noted as part of our audit, but as part of our procedures, we did propose material audit adjustments. So we did note that as a material weakness in your report. That's not an uncommon finding. I believe that the adjustments related to predominantly accrued payroll and then the capital lease issuance that you all had during the year. On page 136.
Well, can I ask you a question? Or can I ask you a question? Or no? I don't know. I mean, I'm just asking. I'm just a citizen.
Well, yes.
Just to explain like the material weakness of what that was.
That just means as part of our procedures, we had to propose audit adjustments to record the debt issuance and to adjust accrued payroll. So it just means that we had adjustments to the financial statements and trial balances that were large in nature, and so we're required to disclose that so that they're aware of that. It really doesn't have to do with the day-to-day operations of the county. It's just getting the financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles.
Okay, so they prepared the financial statements, and then you found some of them need to be adjusted so it can reflect accurately.
So what happens at Smyth County is that the county prepares cash basis trial balances, and a consultant is hired to help get modified and full accrual statements ready. And so there were a couple of adjustments that were not made by the consultants that we found as part of our procedures.
Okay. How much was that?
I would have to go back and look. The debt issuance was $905,000, and I'm not sure what the accrued payroll was off the top of my head.
Okay, so basically it was just, as long as we recorded accrued payroll, the consultants did it correctly?
Yes.
Okay. Who was can we ask who the consultants are?
I had some questions on that also, if you want. I didn't know if you were ready for questions yet.
That's fine.
But, where you referenced the 2020-001 note, and it mentions the identification of total adjustments to the financial statements that are not detected by the entity's internal controls, indicates material weaknesses may exist. Do you want to expound on that? I also noticed that there were some situations with the school board. There were some recommendations as far as some accounts and that type of thing.
Yeah.
So, the one thing that surprised me though is like one of the funds, I'm sure that's been there for years. So why just this year is it noted in the profit?
I'm sorry, the material weakness?
There was a cafeteria fund.
That's been there for a couple of years now.
Yeah, so it
We've had
wasn't
that.
mentioned in prior audits, so.
I believe it was in the comment letter for the last couple of years.
And it hasn't been corrected.
Right.
So, I guess, that's what concerns me is these recommendations I take very seriously to management, to whomever is responsible for making sure these are corrected. And so that does concern me when it's in the audit repeatedly, it keeps coming up and it's not being addressed by staff or whomever's responsible for it. So I knew when I saw that, that's a long-going account that's been there. And yet it's still showing up in our audit again this year. Do you want to expound more on this 2020-001?
The 2020-01 is the material weakness that we were discussing about the two adjustments that we found as part of our procedures to record accrued payroll and record the capital lease issuance. That were just noted as part of our procedures that were not included in the trial balances as provided for audit.
Right. There was another thing, if I could get back for a minute, and we didn't get these until just a couple of days ago. So, that's kind of cold to get and then take time to go through methodically and analyze it. But I noticed under I guess it was for uncollected debt, and because we get a lot of questions from our constituents about past due taxes.
Mm-hmm.
When we were preparing the budget in May, I got a listing from the treasurer's office, and at that time, we had approximately over $3 million showing on the books from collected taxes. And in the report, it estimates it at $571,972, which is, of course, greatly reduced. So is there a factor that you use to reduce that amount down? Is it considered most of that's not going to be collectible?
I'm sorry, which page are you?
Page 20.
On page 20, that 571,972 is actually the allowance for uncollectible taxes. So that is the amount related to the total taxes receivable that we believe for accounting purposes it is not collectible. Usually the way that we derive that number is we take your 20th year of real estate taxes that's outstanding and multiply it by 20 years to estimate over the course of 20 years of taxes receivable outstanding the amount that you may not collect. And then we
There's
take
a big discrepancy then from what I received from the treasurer's office during the budget process of over $3 million to what's reported in the budget. So
Is the $3 million the estimated uncollectible amount by the treasurer? I would say that it's just a difference in the way that we are calculating the estimation. If the treasurer feels that our estimate as presented is not appropriate, then we can certainly revisit that. This is the estimate as it has been calculated, for you all for several years, and it's kind of a standard.
I felt like there must be a calculated component that comes in there.
Yeah, we have a fairly standard way that we calculate it. Some localities do calculate it differently, but we often take the 20th year of real estate times 20 years, and then the 5th year of personal property times 5 years, because that's kind of the time at which you can purge taxes, 5 years and 20.
That's kind of alarming though, to know that on the books we have over $3 million, but then realistically in the audit it looks like it's greatly reduced.
Yeah, and we can certainly look at that with the treasurer and reevaluate that estimate and see if we don't need to increase it, if they truly think that there's much more that's uncollectible.
I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's okay.
Maybe address this, if you please continue.
Okay, that was all I had to go over the financial statements themselves. If there are any other questions, I can answer those, but I was going to move on to the smaller handout that you guys have in front of you.
Anyway, I think
I have a question if I can find it here.
But also, while Charlie's looking for that, I think it would be good at a point to speak to the variances. Because variances are very important in analyzing a financial statement. And if you I don't know if you're prepared to tonight, but for the general person who doesn't have an accounting background, well, often they really don't know how to interpret. And I think that's handy to know what areas might there have been some concern with as far as variances and that type of thing. Are you, Charlie, let's let Charlie address his.
Yeah, mine's on page 15 of the notes to the financial statement. We have 3 component units which were shown in several of the exhibits. And for the school board and economic development, we break out and show, and you can look at that and sort of understand and comprehend the gist of what each of them is doing, where the money's coming from, and where it's going. We also have the public library, and for some reason, we have a few numbers, but it doesn't begin to reflect library operations at all. Why the difference?
The school board and the EDA do not issue separate reports or separate financial statements, so all of their financial statement information that would be included in a separate report is included in your financial statement so that your financial statement picture can be seen in its entirety. The library does issue a separate set of financial statements, so you should be able to get their financial statements from them. The balance sheet and income statement will agree to the information reported in your financial statements, but to see the details and the estimates that are in their financials, you would have to look at their separately issued financial report.
In looking at that, I know you did that audit also, and of course, in full disclosure, I had been through the early years as a finance person. We worked together on some audit. There was a concern last year as insolvency of that entity, and had it not been for COVID, according to what information we were barely able to get, it looked to me like they would be insolvent. They would be insolvent if COVID hadn't happened by June. There would not have been many there to have operated. So I think that's, I don't know if that's included, I was in the audit for the library, that I think that's important information in moving forward as to these different agencies, their real financial positions, so that we can be aware of the board, you know, what the true picture is.
And their audit is complete, so you should be able to get a copy of their financial statements from them, or I can provide with a copy if you'd like to see it.
Okay.
They are more, had not prepared to talk about the library, but I do believe that their balances at the end of the year do look better. I'm unsure whether that relates specifically to COVID, or not, without looking back closer.
Otherwise, I don't think they could have continued for the year. And so, you know, from the accounting perspective, there's this thing of an ongoing entity, and where that's required to be reported if there is a concern. So I'm curious, not to get off on that, but since it is a component part of our fiduciary responsibility, and responsible for the funding that goes there, I think we need to continue to be aware of what's happening there.
And generally speaking, they are funded pretty heavily by the localities and by state and federal governments. So unless we were made aware that that funding was going to be cut, they would not, for audit purposes, be considered a going concern. If we were made aware that Smyth County was going to drastically cut their funding, then that would be considered for disclosure in their financial statements. But I'd be happy to send you a copy of their report if you'd like to see it.
Madam Chairman, I think each board member needs a copy of this. I really don't think this audit is complete until we see the library audit, since so much of the information is being portrayed over there and not shown here.
So we can address that.
Okay.
Are there any other questions for him?
In the audit presentation file, I was going to start on page 2. The report looks a little bit different this year than it has in the past. Page 2 is essentially the general fund income statement scheduled out for the last 5 years so that you can kind of see trends and you know how revenues and expenditures have changed over the course of the years. To the far right, there's a compounded annual growth rate. And there, that tries to take into account it smooths the effects of any outlying revenues or expenditures to see, you know, marginally how you've grown over the years. I just had a couple of things that I thought I would mention. First, about halfway down the page is change in fund balance. You can see that fund balance went up by $2.1 million this year. So I do want to commend you all on that. Down towards a couple of lines down, you can see ending unassigned balance, and you can see that over the years, that's grown from 5.2 million up to 11.1 million.
Emily, not to interrupt you, but usually when there's a change, you can trace it back to some type of explanation. Do you know right off what that could be attributed to?
So this year, the reason for the large increase in fund balance, general property taxes and other local taxes actually increased by about $725,000. About $350,000 of that related to the assessed values and the levy for property taxes during the year. Other local taxes were up. Sales tax was up pretty significantly, I believe about $200,000 this year, which I was pleasantly surprised about. I thought that with the pandemic and things being kind of shut down after March, that would actually swing the other way. So I was pleasantly surprised to see that sales tax and other local taxes both increased during the year. I hope that you guys are still seeing that, over the course of 2021. You did have that capital lease issuance of $905,000. I'm sorry, that's included in the other financing sources on this schedule. Of that $905,000, you guys had set to buy a boiler and a roll-off truck. You only bought the roll-off truck before the end of the year, so you had about $800 and some change in cash at the end of the year that related to that capital lease. So you've got a revenue of $900,000, and the offset is only $150,000. So we expect that will be spent out.
Paying interest on that, though, right?
I'm not sure when your debt payments started on that.
Even though, it's supposed to be for the boiler, and we got that loan, we've been holding it and paying interest.
Mm-hmm. And I would expect that $800,000 will come off in 2021 when you buy the boiler.
Right.
So
that's been about a year.
The 2.1 is not inflated, but it is a little bit higher because of that, because you've got that upcoming expenditure that you're going to be making in the next year. So those two things combined help grow fund balance by about $1.2 million, $1.5 million. I'm sorry, I'm not good at math in my head. Your debt service payments during the year went down by about $200,000, and then recovered costs were also increased by $280,000. That relates to your jail payment and your refund from the jail. So all of those things combined led to an overall increase in $2 million. You'll notice that intergovernmental revenues increased pretty significantly by about $1 million from last year. That full $1 million is offset in expenditures, though. You recognized about $685,000 in CARES funding that was passed through to the school board. They bought iPads and Chromebooks and things like that were purchased before June 30th. And then you had an increase in welfare funds and CSA funds, which is offset in the health and welfare line. So that full intergovernmental increase that you see is offset entirely with expenditures. So that doesn't really flow down to the bottom line. One thing that I did want to mention down at the bottom of the page, we usually like to take a look at your ending unassigned fund balance as a percentage of expenditures. And then I also wanted to look at your cash balances as a percentage of expenditures. When we do the expenditures, we like to include the county, the school board, and take out the contribution in between. And so your balances this year are roughly 14%, your fund balance to expenditures. And then for cash, it's 20% to expenditures. So those fund balances, you might remember, they were roughly 7% in 2016, and they've grown to that 14% level in 2020. So I think that's great. Ideally, GFOA recommends that you've got 2 months worth of reserves, which was about 16 to 17%. I tend to be a little bit risk averse, so I kind of prefer to have higher balances, but you guys are very close to hitting that GFOA mark. I hope that you can sustain that over, the coming months with, who knows what's to come with the economy and the pandemic. Generally, your cash balance would kind of trail similarly to that. The reason that your cash balance is so much higher in the current year is that you did receive all that CARES money in June that you have not spent. So that cash number is a little bit higher. You see that large increase, that's because of the CARES money that's still in there. The next couple of pages just compare revenues and expenditures from 5 years ago to the current year so that you can see where you generate revenue and where you spend money. I won't spend too much time on it. I expect that next year, again, we'll see a large increase in intergovernmental with the CARES funding. And then on the expenditure side, I'm not sure where the funding is going for that, but I would expect some public safety, health and welfare, maybe community development if you're doing business grants. So these charts will look very different, but generally speaking, they're pretty consistent, which I just always find to be interesting. On page 5, we've got your long-term obligations. The only thing that, was really out of the course of normal business was that you had that capital lease of $905,000. Otherwise, you were just making your routine debt payments in accordance with your amortization schedules throughout the year. We'll talk about pension and OPEB, which are included here on the next page, page 6. So we've got all these charts here. The amounts in the middle are what's been recognized for your pension and OPEB on page 6. And you can see that if the discount rate changes 1% higher or lower, that's the effect that it can have on your liability. So we just like to make sure that you're aware that those are significant estimates that are included in your financial statements. On page 7 is the communication with governance letter. You all have a pretty standard letter. We go over again that your significant estimates include pension and OPEB, the allowance for doubtful accounts, which we'll take a look at next year in conjunction with the treasurer, the depreciable lives of assets. If we had any trouble dealing with management, that would be disclosed here, but everybody was great to work with again. Everybody kind of pivoted for us to work from afar and upload files and use a new audit tool, so we really appreciate that. We thought that went pretty well, so hopefully they felt that on their end too. And then the last thing in the packet are the management recommendations. You mentioned the cafeteria account. That's been in here for a couple of years. We would really, our stance is that, or our understanding of the code is that all treasurers, all bank accounts should be with the treasurer. So we'd like to see that moved over to the treasurer. We have had some localities whose attorney has taken a different stance on that. So that may be something that maybe the attorney could look into, or the treasurer and the school board, to see if we can get that moved over.
You know, Julie, years ago, I worked at the middle school, in junior high, and we had that same account then. That's been 40 years ago. And we recommend once a lot of the schools have school activity fund accounts, but if it's a consolidated account that covers all the cafeterias, we really prefer for that to be with the treasurer, because they've got more adequate controls in place. I thought that was noted several times, like with athletic funds and that type of thing too, right?
Well, those are maintained by the schools themselves.
But I know there's a high sensitivity to tracking them.
Generally, I don't go into too much detail on the audit recommendations. One thing that I did want to mention, I mentioned on the proprietary funds that the water and sewer is shown in one column in your financial statements. Rural development with your annual sewer issuance requires that your water and sewer be shown separately. So we have done an allocation in the audit report based on revenues so that we can show those amounts separately in accordance with rural development requirements. Ideally, you all would work to get that information separated in your own set of books, so that when we report it, it's probably a little bit more accurate. It would be on individual invoices and employees and things like that. Now, that being said, that is quite an undertaking to go through the old data and the fixed assets and separate that out. So if we can be of help, if you guys work on that, I'd be happy to provide capital asset information if you need it, or be of any assistance if we can. And then the only other thing I wanted to mention, you all are going to fill out your conflict of interest forms soon. Just be sure that you do those timely, and then make sure that you fill them out completely for us. I think those forms are pretty long and pretty confusing, and sometimes questions can get overlooked. But just a reminder that those are due soon.
Well, you also mentioned in your text that someone should review the forms.
Yes.
Turned in, which might help to.
Ideally, somebody would review them, and it's not just, the school board members, planning commission members fill out real estate disclosure forms, board of zoning and appeals, all the different boards. It might be good just to have somebody glance at them. Certainly not to make sure that they're filled out correctly, verifying information or anything like that, just that all the questions have been answered. If there's any other questions, I'd be happy to go over them. I also have, as you mentioned, I know this information wasn't shared with you well in advance of the presentation. My information is on the front of the presentation file. We serve the board, so we are always there to help answer questions as you go through anything. If you'd like for me to come back to answer more questions or go over anything in detail, I'd be happy to do that too.
Thank you. Do any of the boards have any questions?
Just for conflict of interest, when's it due?
I'm sorry?
The statement, when's it due?
Oh, it's due between January 1st and February 1st.
January 1st and February 1st.
We'll be getting the forms out here in the next week or two.
Just online.
I think last year it came in our packet, didn't it, Lisa?
I think Christie, we're already working on that.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you all, I appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much.
Madam Chairman,
Yes,
can we take 5 minutes?
yes. The board will be recessed for 5 minutes. Meeting back into session. Next on the agenda, we are going to have open public hearing for the Riverside Community Center. And Sean, would you like to read the advertisement for that?
Yes, ma'am, let me, search through my notes real quick and find it.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Okay. So a notice of public hearing, the Board of Supervisors of Smyth County will conduct a public hearing in the boardroom of the Board of Supervisors, 121 Bagley Circle, Suite 100, Marion, Virginia, on Tuesday, December 8th, 2020 at 5 p.m. or soon thereafter, or 6:30, to consider the donation transfer of the Riverside Community Center from Smyth County Board of Supervisors to the Riverside Ruritan Club. The purpose of this hearing will be to consider if Smyth County will donate and transfer the real estate buildings of the old Riverside Elementary School located at 114 Redstone Road in the community of Chilhowie, tax map number 65-A-167 in the Chilhowie voting district and Rye Valley Magisterial District, with reversion rights to the Smyth County Board of Supervisors if the same is abandoned as a community center or the community center ceases to operate and subject to other conditions as the Board of Supervisors may determine if the transfer is approved. All interested persons may express their views by emailing sud@smithcounty.org prior to the meeting. Written comments may also be mailed to the County Administrator, 121 Douglas Circle, Suite 100, Marion, Virginia, 24354, or by fax to 276-783-9314. All emails, written comments, and faxes must be received by 2 p.m. Tuesday, December 8th. Anyone having questions regarding the above may contact the County Administrator's office at 276-783-3298, Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. in compliance with the provisions of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Persons requiring special assistance to attend and participate in this hearing should contact Clegg Williams, ADA Coordinator, at 276-706-8315 at least 24 hours prior to the meeting. By order of the Board of Supervisors of Smyth County, Virginia, Sean Up, County Administrator.
Thank you, Sean. Is there a motion to waive the reading of the?
So moved.
I guess we have to do a roll call vote again.
Okay, Mr. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Sturgill? Yes. Mr. Stevenson? Yes. Dr. Ratliff?
Yes.
Ms. Wyatt?
Yes.
Ms. Deal?
Yes.
Mr. Call?
Yes.
Has anyone signed up to speak?
Yes. So if you don't mind, I'll do a quick little summary.
Yeah.
So, you have at your dais some recent pictures. These were taken today of the building. I tried to get a good glimpse of the whole building. There's roughly 2.5 acres, a little bit more than that at the site. As you may know, back in the early 90s, the school board transferred the ownership to the Board of Supervisors. In 1993, we signed a lease with the Ruritan Club, and I'm assuming that they've been a tenant ever since, maybe $1 a year or whatever the cost is, and they've been paying the insurance costs, maintenance costs. We have also used this building since then as a voting precinct. We'll be working with the Ruritans and with the registrar to find out if that continues or if we need to transfer the location, and we'll do that according to whatever the Board of Elections requires. We do have Ms. Sturgill from the Ruritan Club here that would like to speak. I will also say that I received an email from Sam Catcher, who's a family member of the family that the school board bought the property off of back in the 50s. At that time, the family reserved first right of refusal So he is requesting consideration to that. So what I would like to suggest or recommend following the public hearing is no action be taken other than directing the county attorney to form an opinion on the title issues, if there are any title issues, or what the next steps will be, likely to be provided back at the January meeting.
And Mr. Petron's interest in talking is just in the playground part of it.
Yes, I'm sorry. The rear portion of the property is about 2.2 acres. Apparently, the school board purchased that land when we did an addition on the single-story addition. The two-story addition was built 3 decades before. So I don't.
It adjoins his farm, and I think he was maybe part of the family that originally sold.
Yeah, the Cole family.
So our attorney will work with them to resolve it.
Yes, ma'am.
So, Deborah Sturgill?
Hello, thank you.
Debbie, could you just state your name and address, please?
Okay, I'm Deborah Sturgill. I live at 315 Straightway, Rancho Valley, just above the schoolhouse.
Okay.
I'd like to say a few things. Many of you probably, I know all the ones that are on board now probably may not know the original history of why we have the building, but we bought my grandmother's home place and we moved from Adwolf to Riverside. And so I come home down there one day and I asked Dad, I said, what is all the dirt piles down at the schoolhouse? And he said, I don't know, I've been in here all day. The next day he went to find out and talked with the truck drivers that was dumping all the dirt. And he said, what you guys doing? And they said, we're going to put the convenience station here. Now, those of you that know the old history at the caution light, how bad the dump down there was. Everything from trash in the river, carcasses of deer. And so they felt like that this was their next best option. I really took advantage of that right quick because it's right there at the front of that church. There's a house there. And I just didn't feel like that was where it needed to be. So my dad got on the phone that night after supper and talked to board of supervisors.
Was he a board?
My dad was on the board of supervisors in the early 80s.
Right.
So the first two didn't know about it. The second one, the next one probably knew something. And the fourth one kind of almost lied to him about knowing it. So he turned around, he called the first one back and he said, you can't do this without a public hearing. The next day, there was never another pile of dirt that appeared. So he and I came to the Board of Supervisors to ask if we could form a club and do something besides what they wanted to do. And so, as you know, the dump now is at Wilkinson's Mill, which is a whole lot better site than it would have been to put it there. There's been a lot of good things happened over the years. Like he said, we do have the voting precinct there. We've had lots of meetings with Ruatan. The tractor club meets there. For quite some time, until a couple of years ago, there's been the wrestling for the children. We've always tried to get in on some of the children's events because there's not a whole lot of those out in the country. There's been tractor shows. The Friends of the South Fork River met there. There's been birthdays and baby showers and wedding showers and duck races. My dad helped put together the kids fishing day that we have every year. We didn't get to have it this year. It would have been the 26th one. And so maybe hopefully next year everything would clear up. My great love of that building, it is probably, to my knowledge, the last federal style building that we have in this county. The man who built it also built the federal style building at Adwolf that sat where the Adwolf Fire Hall does now. And it's gone. And so this is the last one that we have. My grandmother taught there. Her sister taught there. my mother taught that. So you can kind of understand why it's just an interesting place for me, you know, that I spend a lot of time there in the church, both, just, you know. Both of those, they all work together, you know. If one of them needed help with something else, they would help. And so, I started school in the first grade there, and a lot of the community there around us they all went to school. Generations of them did. My dad wanted to use the best natural resource that was there, which was the river, and that's how we got to doing some duck races. But he was on the board of the agricultural end of TVA for years, and has had a lot of friends that was, that he felt like with the Friends of the South Fork that could help us there. And that's how the riverbank, we changed the riverbank. They got with VDOT. A friend of ours went to the quarry and spent an entire day picking the boulders that was this big. VDOT put a special hook. They had it built for a piece of equipment they brought over here out of coal fields to set that rock in against the bank. It was eroding, and if you really want to see how bad it erodes, go on the other side of the river and you can see it at the church. We didn't have enough money to do that one. TVA ran out of money, and it's just eating the bank up on the other side. But we also, you know, we've planted trees there. The trees that are along the river are ones that were designed to give you extra shade, you know, on the water, because that makes for very good fishing. It improves it, they say so much. Of course, it's hard to raise funds out in the county, you know. When you get out of town, it's hard to bring people out of town. Technology, you know, everybody's interested in a lot of different things now, and it makes it even harder to have events. But we, you know, we've had a lot of break-ins over the years, and so that, you know, kind of gets you down. You go and find the door open, you think, no, not again, but it happens. So, but that's pretty much, you know, the last major thing that we did, we had a water line that froze when we had just a bitter cold winter. So we've redone the water line, and it doesn't go through the old part of the building now. It comes along the side of it and runs in the back of the kitchen. So that's the last, you know, project, you know, major to improve the building that we've actually done. So, but thank you very much.
Thank you,
Can
Tiffany.
I ask a question?
Yes.
What you said to them? Well, you have a lot of fishing for the kids, a lot of outside events, a lot of stuff like that. You use all the land there?
Well, they fish both sides of the bridge.
I mean, when you have tractor events, and,
Yes.
I mean, I'll tell you what I'm asking.
When they have the tractor show, yes, they do.
You know, for seeing into the future. Mr. Caston feels like, and there may be something in the deed, and this is what I like for the attorney to say, if there's something in the deed, then there's something in the deed. If somebody just said something and said, we'll give you first option, well, if it ain't the deed, it ain't the deed. And my point is, me personally, if we're gonna give you the building, I wanna make sure you use all the land. And I'm sure you do if you use a tractor and have all these outdoor events. I don't wanna give you a building and give somebody else half of the land and you know where, have room to have an event in.
Well, and you need parking, you know.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. And that's why I'm asking you these questions, and that's why I'm making a comment. When we look into it, I, one, personally want to know that it's something that's on a piece of paper. If it ain't, or it's not. Alright, don't laugh at my redneck language. I don't want to take something away from a Rutan Club when they need the whole thing to have. These tractor events are a big thing. The fishing's a big thing. And I'm all for giving it to the Rutan Club. But you get where I'm going.
Yes, sir.
If you'll go back, now, this is part of church history too. See, our church used to sit in behind this building. the very first one, and then it came to where it is to be now. From some of the elder fellows at the church, the land was given, and the attorney can check this way back, the land was given to make a school, and it was, I think Mr. Cole had it fixed to where if it ceased to be a school, that it would revert back to the Cole family. Okay, it ceased to, of course, they were gone, and there's only 2, I think, daughters that was left. But several years ago, and I think this was right, maybe before that we came in there, there was a kind of a good bit of back and forth discussion, argument, whatever, They thought that since they had bought Mr. Cole's property, that, that would come in on that too. It was a pretty much sticky wicket at the time, from what I understand.
Well, I'm looking at a piece of paper that says that in the deed they'll have first refusal. The fact that, and I believe in paperwork and stuff like that, the fact that they're going to have a refusal on it, which is in paperwork, I'm looking at highlighted. The best thing to do is put this thing on hold till we find out.
And you said it was 1950?
I'm not looking at it.
Is that what you said?
53 or 53.
It says in the event said property ceases to be used for school purposes, the parties of the first part, their executors, administrators, and signers shall have first right of refusal to purchase name from the school board at a price to be agreed upon at such time. So it is in paper. Thank you, sir.
Ms. Sturgill, you believe that there was some conversation with the school board back in the early 90s about
There
this?
was, because I remember Dad talking about it as well.
Do you know if that happened at a public meeting or how that occurred?
I don't know.
Okay.
My mama might remember, but right at the moment I don't.
This is Catherine's fault. I'm sorry.
We'll get the school board to dig around and see if they can find something.
Yes, please.
Do they farm right behind that?
He has, I think someone's renting all of it. Lee and Sam don't farm, I don't think, actively, so.
When did that cease to be a school?
I think 88.
Nothing was said then?
I don't have any idea.
Well, when it closed, it was empty for 7 years. And when we officially was able to get in it, well, even before that, Dad called Marvin Perry and he said, I want you to bring 3 or 4 supervisors down here. I want them to see what you all took back from the school board. Dad wouldn't let me in. He knew it would upset me. We cleaned out 2 pickup truck loads, and I'm talking about loose, of glass. It had been broken into and vandalized, and it was a mess. I mean,
I remember.
it was
I
awful.
was just wondering, when it ceased to be a school, why was something wasn't said about the property then?
Oh, I don't know, it sat empty that long,
Nobody had any interest in it.
so.
And does that refer to the original owners, or does that transfer through? That's an issue for
I think he's got something to look at it. I think he's sitting in the paper if they said we want him.
Yeah.
I don't think we can bring him in.
And if it stays, if the Ruatan gets it, and it stays a voting precinct,
Yes.
you're gonna have to have parking. If you're gonna have a voting precinct, you're gonna have to have some property.
The only thing, can I say something about that right there? They came, the ADA people came from Richmond, and my mother met them down there. And the front sidewalk is in sections, okay? And that lady got down on the ground, and she eyeballed it, and she said, I think this will be okay. Well, since they sabotaged the furnace and took all the copper and everything at the front end of the building, we don't have a furnace there. The only working furnace I have is in the gymnasium, which makes so much better place to vote anyway. But the problem is, That is not the handicap access. The other problem with the handicap access, somebody that is either on a cane or on a walker, by the time they get down to the other end of the building, they have to sit down and rest before they can get up and back, some of them do. And it's just not, it's not good, you know. The handicap ramp should have been down on that end.
I remember when that ADA problem, I was here.
So,
The issue there, if you really had to, we had to do is to put a door on the ramp. Have one pulled down there, or they could come right in.
yeah,
If you're gonna have to make it ADA compliant, you might as well do it right.
right. But they just wouldn't,
But we'll talk about that later.
Okay.
See what the attorney says.
whatever. Okay. Is there anything else for me?
You know, if just a matter of advice, I don't like to give advice, so it's people ask for it, because they take it the wrong way when you give it, and they didn't ask for it. But if I wanted the whole place, I might be talking to Mr. Catcher, or who has first refusal on to see if it's donated.
Well, yeah, so even, you know, if it's in there, and I believe you read it, and I believe you've seen it, first refusal, we can't give it to them, yeah.
I think
It's illegal.
I think he was only interested in the playground part, which is out
Yeah, the
inside the building, not the building right off the grounds. So
Right.
that's what he told me on the phone. So.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, there's your place to go.
Would it be an issue of if we wouldn't have to buy it? I mean, are we allowed to just give it to them?
No, he said,
I don't think so.
he just told me he was interested, they were interested in purchasing it based on depending on what the price would be.
Yeah, the price.
Yeah, the fair market value, I think he called it.
Right.
So that's what he said, and I don't have any idea what that would be.
Maybe the playground or anything?
Maybe it wouldn't.
No, but we've had weddings out there, and, you know, there's been several things.
Then again, if I was you and he was my neighbor, I would go speak with him and tell him what you'd like to have. And he might be able to work something out before it ever gets to you.
Okay.
And he may not.
It's worth a shot.
Yeah.
Be a lot easier.
I'm gonna say thank you for many years when I was head football coach at Joe Alley. Y'all served a lot of our banquet meals in that gym there. We had 200 people, those meals were great. It was a fundraiser for them, so they did an outstanding job with it.
Yeah, we enjoyed having it.
Yeah.
It was a sardine crowd.
It was. Those were great memories.
Yeah, there's been lots of great memories in them. And we lost 2 members this year, and that was very hard workers, and it was a very sad situation for us. So,
I just want to say thank you, because I really appreciate it.
thank you, Mike. All right,
Judy, thank you for the information.
okay, you're welcome. Thank
No
you.
one else has signed up to speak. Is there anyone else here that wishes to speak during the public hearing? If not, we will close the public hearing. Are we ready now for the public hearing on the budget?
Sure.
Next on the agenda is the FY 2021 budget amendment.
So the public hearing notice, pursuant to section 15.2-2507 of the Code of Virginia, notice is hereby given to the board, by the Board of Supervisors of Smyth County. Will hold a public hearing in the boardroom of Smyth County Administration Building at 121 Bagley Circle, Marion, Virginia, on Tuesday, December 8, 2020 at 5 p.m. or soon thereafter, to receive comments on proposed amendments to the budget for fiscal year 2020-2021. This amendment will increase the fiscal year 2020-2021 adopted budget for additional school board funds, emergency management VDM grant funds, and additional federal CARES Act funding for broadband. The new total budget amount will be $99,389,279. All interested persons may express their views by emailing sud@smithcounty.org prior to the meeting. Written comments may also be mailed to the county administrator, 121 Bagley Circle, Suite 1, Marion, Virginia, 24354, or by fax to 276-783-9314. All emails, written comments, and faxes must be received by 2 p.m. Tuesday, December 8, 2020. A copy of the proposed budget amendment is available for public review by contacting the county administrator's office Anyone having questions regarding the above may contact the County Administrator's Office at 276-783-3298, Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. In compliance with the provisions of the Americans with Disabilities Act, persons requiring special assistance to attend and participate in this hearing should contact Clegg Williams, ADA Coordinator, at 276-706-8315, at least 24 hours prior to the hearing. By order of the Board of Supervisors, Smyth County, Virginia, Shawn, County Administrator.
Okay, has anyone signed up to speak, Sean?
No, ma'am.
Is there anything else that you want to say about this?
You have a summary in your packet. I will bring up that there are the three sections. The VDM grant is the rather easy one, $49,804 is the grant amount. We're going to match that with the equal amount of CARES Act funds. That's, I think we discussed it at the last meeting, that's the notification system that we're working on. The school board funds, there are three CARES Act funds. With two of them from the state, one of them is basically adopting the funds that we transferred to them. And then the third one is what I do want to bring up, and I think this will help Mr. Stevenson. He and I have been talking about this. If you remember, we received a grant from the state to provide broadband service through Point Broadband and SmithNet. So the Point Broadband project is going on in Rich Valley right now. Basically what we need to do is, what I would recommend after speaking with Mr. Stevenson and the attorney, is to adopt the budget amendment as presented, with one caveat, that the release of the CARES Act broadband funding is contingent on the finalizing a performance agreement. And we have some draft performance agreement requirements, or standard performance agreement template from Washington County that they use. And basically what that is if for some reason the feds or the state government comes down and says the fiber line wasn't built correctly and wants the $300,000 back from the county, well, Point Broadband or SmithNet will basically
Reimburse
the county. Thank you. I'm sorry.
They're aware of that.
Yes, I had a conversation with Point Broadband this afternoon. He actually was going to forward me a copy of the agreement that he has with Washington County. He has it with the same one with 3 or 4 other localities in the Southwest, so he had no problem, no concern.
Any questions?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
The reason this come about, and I'll just hear it on brief, and I think this idea will work, is if you read on page 45, we're talking about the county insurance project expenses and documents.
All right, can you hear me now? If you're on 45, if you read where it says, we want to reiterate about the county to ensure project expenses, documents, and verify in case of audit. You know, I think when we facilitate a grant, we ought to get certain information out of it. We ought to be protected. So that's why I've asked Sean to look into this. I get this thing was hurried up, but I don't want to get the taxpayers stuck with something that don't pan out for whatever reason.
Especially when we're only a facilitator and we're not part of anything other than we had to submit the application. Point Broadband's doing all the work. They're doing having all the conversations with the state. I don't even know who to call it the state. We just talk to Point. So I agree with Mr. Stevenson. That's definitely a good idea.
Okay.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
do we need to waive our rules and go ahead and adopt this tonight?
Yes, please, because this is the last chance. We have to have this money spent by the end of the month.
I noticed it includes appropriations too.
Yes, sir.
Do you want to make that motion?
I'll make the motion we adopt the resolution on page 42. Is that what we need?
I'll second.
Okay.
If I may, can you put the contingency on the performance agreement for the broadband funds?
Oh, yes, definitely.
I just want to make sure that that's part of your motion.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
I agree, if we don't get that.
If we don't get that, we're not doing it.
Right. yeah, the money goes back to the state.
Yeah.
Are we ready for, go? Mr. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Sturgill?
Abstain.
Mr. Stevenson?
Yes.
Dr. Ratliff?
Yes.
Ms. Wyatt?
Yes.
Ms. Deal?
Yes.
Mr. Call?
Yes.
So the public hearing is now closed. Next on the agenda is the special use permit request from the planning commission. Mr. Rudd, I think you have that.
I do. If I can find my notes. So you have in your packet the recommendation from the planning commission to approve the special exception with some adjustments. And I think it's attachment number 9 in your packet. So the recommendation from the planning commission is to approve the special exception with the following stipulations: that the entrance be approved by VDOT, the health department issues a safe, adequate, and proper permit on the existing septic systems, and 2 100-foot privacy fences be constructed with on each one centered on the adjoining property owners' homes. That was passed unanimously and is thus the recommendation from the planning commission.
Make a motion. Make a motion to accept the planning commission's recommendation.
I second.
Okay.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to see us add a little bit more change to that. The 2 100-foot privacy fences it says 2 100-foot privacy fences be constructed with each one centered on the adjoining property. I'd like to say constructed and maintained.
I agree with that.
I agree, I don't mean, that's good.
I see that, I think Pastor Sage is here. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have anything, is there a problem with that at all for you all?
No, we don't have any problem. No, we'll do whatever, but we're thinking now that a real nice, beautiful hedge, a possibility. So we'll talk with cows and raccoons and all that. We'll get along with it.
So it all sounds agreeable to you? Okay. So we will make that change?
Yes.
Okay. So we have a motion?
Madam Chairman, can you or Mr. Utt repeat that amendment to the end so Chris and I can hear it again?
The third item on the privacy fences will state 2 100-foot privacy fences to be constructed and maintained, with each one centered on the adjoining property owners' homes.
Great, thank you.
Okay, motion and a second. So now, Sean, do you want to do the roll call vote?
Okay. Mr. Atkins?
No.
Mr. Sturgill?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson?
I'm going yes, based on I missed that meeting, and that's in your district. I tell you what, I've hesitated. Usually somebody knows your district. So, I don't guess I can ask you a question while we're voting. I won't put you on the spot either. I'm going along with it because my man on the board recommended it, so I'm going to trust him. Yes.
Dr. Ratliff?
Yes.
Ms. Wyatt?
Yes.
Ms. Deal?
Yes.
Mr. Call?
Yes.
Okay, next on the agenda, Sean, is the unity grid follow-up.
Okay, so you have in your packet the draft resolution related to the unity and equality. I think I spoke with everyone throughout the month on at least one time, if not more, multiple times about the draft in your packet. I will say that I personally feel, or the goal when I drafted this was to create as neutral and uniform and all-encompassing resolution as possible, with the goal of basically saying we support the Constitution and that everyone should be treated equal. Now, you can't control how the gas station treats their clients, or grocery stores, or neighbors, but I think the goal of this resolution was whatever happens with the county and the county's operations and the county's control would be done so in a neutral and equitable manner. But, you've heard at the public comments, some really good, thoughts and comments. If you'd like, I think it's probably best for you to take this home and absorb it, talk to some of your constituents if you'd like, and get some feedback. We can certainly put this on the agenda for the January meeting. I don't know that there's a hard and fast deadline, because I don't want to make it feel like we're trying to force something, or not really staff, that the JEPC folks are trying to force something. They were simply asking for some support. I can't speak for them, but at least for the conversations I've been able to have with them, it's the way they've talked. So be glad to answer any questions.
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
I agree. We wanted it generic and legal thing, and I think you've done a good job. And I would like some time to look over it, because I tell you what, Mr. Watson has some real good points.
Sure.
And I agree with you. And sometimes and I want to ask an attorney, well, you're on. Sometimes when you read something, you think it says one thing, it means another. So, I don't think anybody's bleeding here. I don't think it's going to hurt to lay it a month. I appreciate Mr. Watson standing up there and saying what he did. It's very hard. And he had some real good points, and some I agree with. And I'm not against any of this. Matter of fact, I'm for equality. But sometimes I think equality exists in your mind. You make your own situation better. The last thing I want to do is send anything to our governor or anybody in Richmond and say, we're going to use this to change this or that. That is my whole hesitation on making sure I want this where I want it.
I agree. I personally don't want this to be a political political ploy. In my opinion, it's really for the betterment of the citizens. Whatever happens to it afterwards, we just need to make sure that it's drafted in such a form that it's not used for reasons that we don't want it to be used for.
I agree wholeheartedly, and I think it's what Mr. Watson was saying. And I'm not going to speak for him because he spoke what, and I appreciate you. And but I'd like for delay just to look at and study and hear what some of the nights, the first night I've seen it. I think Sean done a good job, but sometimes when you look at something twice, you say, oh, I didn't see that. So I like to just carry it and see if anybody over my end has got any thoughts.
Sure.
Any other comments?
Yes, I agree. The people, I just find it hard to sign a piece of paper, put down in front of me, and telling me that I'm going to do something that we're already done.
It's already being done, yes, sir.
I'm very proud of Smyth County. I don't see any discrimination, or I worked at all kinds of places. All types of people work there. I've worked with all types of people in construction. And Smyth County is one of the best places I've ever seen. I've never seen outright discrimination anywhere. And it's just, I agree with it. I'm not going to discriminate against anybody, but in turn, I don't want to be discriminated against either. And the Black Lives Matter, yeah, surely the White Lives Matter too. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I think we need to look at it and look at it thoroughly and before making a decision and make it each person's decision. Sure, be fine with me, sure. But I pride myself in not being discriminatory. I sure don't want to have to sign a paper saying we'll do something I'm already doing, like I said. But I agree with you. You've done a good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll just table this for another meeting, is that correct?
Have it on the January meeting?
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, moving on. The next item on the agenda is options plans for the board retreat.
Yes, ma'am. I was going to open up my calendar. I've worked out with Berkeley Group who is going to be doing the facilitation, as I reported at the last meeting. They're looking at the possibly the last week of January, if you'd like to do it that quickly. I think they were thinking or expecting you would want to look at March, April. Personally, I'd like to get this done before the budget starts so that I can put my budget together with the goals that comes out of this retreat. So, to do it right, you're looking at about a 7-hour process. What I'd like to recommend is split that over 2 days, like a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, something like that, where it's maybe 4 to 7 on one day and 8 to 12 the next day, or something like that. I don't want to take too much of your time, but I do want to stress that, in my opinion, this is going to be one of the most important things that the board does for the year, because this will give us the structure of what we want to be putting in the budget, whether it's the capital improvements plan or what have you. So I just wanted to throw that out and see what the board wanted to do as far as date-wise.
Are there any comments from the board?
Now, one thought is we always meet, not always, but when we meet a second time in a month, it's the fourth Thursday. We could do that Thursday night, Friday morning, if that works for everybody. But I don't know how you feel for a Friday meeting. I personally don't have a problem with it, but
Sean,
I'm
I
here
know
anyway.
there was some mailing that we got right before the meeting, that there's a group that would coordinate this, and that would be in touch with each
Yes, ma'am.
supervisor.
Mhm.
And so, just for my own information, is that just to get an idea of what our vision is for the county? And
One-on-one.
how-
Yes, ma'am. So the gentleman that's going to be facilitating, he was he's been a county administrator and city manager for 33, 34, maybe even longer than that, years. So he has a list of questions that he likes to talk from, to get an idea of why you're on the board, why did you choose to run, what's your goals, what do you think all 7 board members can work together and accomplish, and help build that priority. And those conversations will occur the first couple of weeks of January. He'll take the information that he gets from all 7 board members, and he'll craft what that 7 hours looks like.
And that would be appropriate to do before the budget process starts.
Yes, ma'am.
Because that kind of is your format to where you allocate your resources. So, but what about other members of the board? What about the proposed date of like January? Does that seem agreeable?
You said Thursday and Friday?
It would, yeah, if we do Thursday and Friday, it'd be January 28th, 29th.
What would the time of the 28th be?
I would, if on the 28th, so we're not here too late, I would recommend maybe a 4 o'clock to 7 o'clock on the 28th, and 8 to 12 on the 29th.
Here at this building, is that where you're proposing?
Actually, they recommend that we find a neutral site. I'm hoping that Hemlock Haven is available at Hungry Mother. If that's not available, we could use the golf course, or we can find some other spots that's not necessarily specific to this building. But hopefully the Hungry Mother would be the option.
So do we need to take action?
That works for me.
I don't necessarily need a full motion, but 7 nods, that would be enough for me to get
Chris?
everything scheduled.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
as an alternative to the 2 sites that were just previously mentioned, the Francis Hotel downtown might be an option to throw in the mix as well with their conference room.
That's a great idea, Dr. Rupp. Thank you. Okay. Are you agreeable with it, Bosco? Charlie? Okay. Well, I think you have agreement on all the members of the board, so.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the report on the CARES Act fund.
So you have in your packet a list there of the CARES Act funds. Basically, and I have also at your dais, there's an additional list with a bunch of yellow marks on it. That is and I hope Ms. Ratliff and Ms. Deal and Dr. Ratliff was received it on their email earlier. This accounts for basically 3.3 million of the 3.6 million of the county's portion. Reminder that the county received a total of 5.2 million, transferred the proportional share to each of the towns, and the county left the county with 3.6 million. The good news on the additional item that you have is the breakout of the Smyth Strong Fund itself. That was the $300,000 that the county provided to the EDA. They partnered with Saltville and Chilhowie. I think they had 340,000 total, and that's a list of the folks that received, as well as some numbers, whether jobs saved or jobs protected, and number of businesses in each locality. The $300,000 that remains, we have just over $300,000 originally that was scheduled or planned to be transferred to cover our costs from last fiscal year. If we do have some costs that some purchases that we've made with this money that is deemed ineligible, we also have $1.1 million of public safety related expenses that's automatically eligible. So that's that buffer. They can come back and say we shouldn't have bought XYZ truck. Well, okay, we'll turn that over here and pay for it somewhere else, and we'll show this part of this 1.1 million. It's really semantics in this at this stage. The good news is we were able to spend $3.6 million on investments in the county that were really needed, that you didn't have to spend general fund dollars on.
It's been great.
Be glad to answer any questions if you have any.
How does this list come about? Do these people apply?
Yes. So the EDA partnered with the Chamber of Commerce, and the Chamber marketed the program out to the businesses. And one thing that the EDA required was you've got to market to everybody. We're not saying we don't want you just to market to your members. If you're not a chamber member, you still received some information or some feedback. So that process played out for 60 days or so, and I think we had 3 different rounds of funding before we were able to spend all $340,000.
What ranks one? Like the nail studio gets $10,000 and the other gets $5,000. Does that matter in application and how you feel with that?
Part of the application, part of how much they lost as a result of COVID, and they had to show it in their budget, in their P&L, over comparing last year to current operations. So they had to prove that, they lost more than $10,000, or they lost more than however much. And I'll tell you, that was a separate review committee created, 3 members of the EDA, someone from Saltville, someone from Chilhowie, 5 folks that were together and did all the reviews of the applications. And of course, they made the recommendations to the full EDA board, but it was the 5 that did the in-depth research. I wasn't part of that. We staffed it. Hayden staffed it for us. For the county, and she worked with Ms. Gillespie at the chamber, but it was the 5 folks that really worked through what.
Sean, I have a couple of things to just report.
Mm-hmm.
In this process, I certainly became aware of some things that I was not before that concerned me. And even, I know like the chamber does the boot camp, and that's a separate thing, but people are asking me, how many of these businesses stay in business? Are we really getting a return on some of these businesses that we're allocating? Sometimes some pretty large amounts, and sometimes to get multiple grants to a certain organization. The other thing that greatly concerned me was that Smyth County does not seem to be an incubator that's real friendly to business. And we're talking about economic development all the time. And I heard, for example, that in Wythe County, this one business had looked at a building, and they regularly get phone calls back saying, this building's available, that one is. What can we do to get you to come here? but Smith County, there's never been a return phone call.
Yeah.
That concerns
What-
me.
I-
I don't know how many players are involved in economic development. Obviously, we've got to fragment it out to several different sources. But I think we have some work to do there
Sure.
on that.
I'd love to get more information
Yeah.
on it.
And
I'm sorry.
well, also, I think that Mr. Thomason talked about the county administrator coming to Maryland regularly saying, what can I do to help you?
Sure.
I think that's an important component too, of not only recruiting industry, but of course we want to make it an atmosphere that's conducive to that. But we need to do everything we can to retain and promote what we've got.
Just build that relationship.
I don't have enough. I'm trying to be real quiet.
Go ahead.
Cover the point I wanted to cover. No, I think you get on the highlights of it. I get how bad COVID was and all this stuff, and some of these numbers of money the government's handed out, it just kind of turns my stomach. I mean, I'm no accountant. I'm probably the accountant of the two. I'm probably the worst person in here to do that, but I'm smart enough to know you don't give a bunch of money away without replacing it somewhere. And all this money that I look down through here, people got, I mean, COVID affected my business. I worked for people who paid me their play money. And when they had no play money, I had no work. And COVID affected them hard. What scares me is I see $300,000 just handed out. And I get people have a hard time during COVID. But somewhere down the road, whether it's a grant for Point Broadband, whether it's here, somebody's gonna pay it back. Either a school or some department is gonna take a hit on down the road. This money just didn't show up and grow on a tree somewhere. I'm sorry.
I said I agree. I mean, that was my worry. I tell you personally, I have a hard time receiving $5.2 million and figuring out how to spend it because I know, like you said, it's got to come from something. But the problem, I guess, on the other side of in my mind is if we don't spend it, Northern Virginia or somebody else in Virginia will, so we might as well take advantage of it.
Well, I get that, and I'm not saying you're wrong. And I'll probably never see it, but one day somebody's gonna take a different view on it. So they gotta take a stand and say, we gotta quit giving money away, we gotta quit wasting money. There's gotta be a reason you give somebody money.
Yeah. I think we have to have a level playing field and with people competing. And I think that there needs to be one of the criteria is what are you giving back to the county?
Mm-hmm. Return. What's the return?
Yeah. Okay. Any other discussion?
I mean,
All right, moving on then, we've got, Sean, did you have more?
No.
Okay. We have committee reports and recommendations, and one is the Public Safety Committee from Lori.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I don't think there's a copy of the minutes from that meeting in your packet, because I didn't have one, so I'm kind of going by memory, so if I forget something, Mr. Utt or Mr. Sergel and Mr. Allen, please speak up. But we met on Tuesday, December 1st, and discussed the following items. The new ambulance that we were able to purchase with CARES Act funding should be here soon, if it's not here already. Mr. Utt?
Not yet, but
comment on that?
we're still waiting.
Okay, great. In addition to that discussion regarding that particular ambulance, we will be meeting with Salvo Rescue to discuss a lease agreement, and if there's interest in moving forward with that. Of course, as I mentioned from our previous meeting, there will be a list of expectations from each of the departments if this is something that we're able to do moving forward. Obviously, we want to make sure that the response times are adequate, as well as the percentage of calls that are responded to. So there's a lot of things that we're outlining that are going to be required from the county, since we're the responsible party for those calls. Also coming up, there will be a chiefs meeting on January the 5th. That'll be the first meeting of kind of getting everybody together. We want to make sure everybody's on the same page, that we're all working together, keeping lines of communication open, because obviously moving forward, we're wanting to build this program where it's stronger and serves our citizens. In addition to that, we're going to be developing a strategic plan. We're going to do that in two parts, a short-term strategic plan and a long-term strategic plan. And part of that, we will be doing a community assessment. So we'll be asking folks questions on kind of how they feel, how they're being served. So that'll be specific to each district. So we'll be able to get feedback from the citizens to incorporate some things in that plan moving forward. But we're looking forward to that Chiefs meeting on the 5th, and we're actually going to use that meeting as our next public safety committee meeting. So Mr. Sturgill, Mr. Ratliff, and myself will be attending that, and it will be at the Atlas Fire Department. And I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has anything to add.
Ms. Deal, I will add one thing, if you don't mind, about the 911 audio recorder system. I have the
Yes,
notes here from Mr. Crawford. If you don't mind, I'll go ahead and do that.
Sure, yes, that would be great. That was the only thing I didn't have specific notes on.
So the 911 system has a program that records all the phone calls coming in and out. It's in need of replacement. We received bids from 3 or 4 different groups. Mr. Williams had recommended to the committee to go with Mobile Communications Nextlog 740 at a price of $19,428.99. That is just over $3,000 higher than the previous system or what's in the budget, but we can move money around in the budget to cover the costs. Upon the guidance or upon discussion, a motion was made to accept the staff recommendation on moving forward with $19,428.99 purchase of Mobile Communication Nextlog 740 communication system made by Mr. Sturgill and seconded by Dr. Ratliff. It was a unanimous vote from the committee, recommendation from the committee.
So it's committee recommendations. I guess we need to do a roll call.
We can.
Go ahead.
I have none.
Are there any questions?
Okay, Mr. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Sturgill?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson?
Yeah.
Dr. Ratliff?
Yes.
Ms. Wyatt?
Yes.
Ms. Deal?
Yes.
Mr. Call?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, under new business, it's extension of deadline for payment of personal property and real estate taxes.
Okay, you have in your, at your dais a copy of an email from Mr. Burkett. That was a response to an email from our attorney. Basically, in a nutshell, the taxes for real estate and personal property were due this past Monday. Everyone knows, I think, of the issues that the treasurer's office has had to deal with having to be closed for a few weeks. So they weren't able to process the payments. What they're asking is an extension of that deadline to December 15th. He does, which is interesting, they have 6 boxes of mail, hundreds of online payments, and numerous mortgage company payments to process. So they feel confident that December 15th is far enough out. They want it to be open they figure about a week will allow for the folks that like to come in and out, be present. They also, I've spoken with him, I think he can waive the penalties himself rather than requiring the board action, and he's willing to work with anyone that's trying to pay their taxes. But we do need, the board is recommended or requested to extend the deadline retroactively to December 15th for real estate taxes and personal property taxes.
Sean, I know that effective tomorrow you're closing the county offices.
To the public, yes ma'am.
Okay, is that going to affect?
It does not affect the courthouse.
Okay.
No. That operation, that would be decisions of the judge.
Okay.
And as far as I know, there's no, that's not being considered at this point.
Okay.
Madam Chairman, I think they need for the 15th at least.
I do too, I think that's very.
I don't know that it's even far enough out.
I don't either, I thought January 1 would be better, but,
I agree with that.
yeah,
I
Is
mean,
it
the
got the
offices was closed, people were sick. and,
yeah.
You know, some people, they just like to make sure the taxes get paid. And, you know, I don't want anybody right now to have to pay a penalty because of COVID.
No.
I don't know nobody, I get that may be his thing, but I hope I don't hear that somebody had to pay a penalty that's been paying their taxes.
He did assure me that if you pay before January 4th, you will not receive a penalty.
Can we extend it to January
I think
2nd,
it's
January
the
1?
board's. Well, they're not open, you have to look at the weekend and the holiday. I think that's why the January 4th was thrown out. Yeah, that's the Monday, the first Monday of the month.
I think that's reasonable,
January 4th.
yeah. What's the pleasure of the board?
If we pay from January the 15th to January the 30th, but it needs to be extended.
Yes, I agree.
So,
All right.
What was Tom's concern about, he said something about wanting to close it or something?
Okay, so his concern of going beyond the 15th is, he has a longtime employee that's retiring. He also has another opening that he's interviewing for, and he needs to basically hire 2 people between now and December 30th. And he's concerned about basically having the time to do that. But in the grand scheme of things, I think if you wish.
I get his concern, but the fact that it was closed is not the county residents' problem. So,
Well, the 4th, what he's suggesting, would be fine.
Yeah, I thought one of
January
the
4th.
people retired and come back part-time, I don't know that.
She's going to come, she possibly will come back part-time, but not till February.
Okay.
She has to break in service, doesn't she?
Yeah.
That's
He
required by
feels
law.
confident.
I know that's a requirement, but that's not always adhered to. That's neither here nor there, but I know their agency has not been on it. Okay, so do we have a motion?
I second Roscoe's motion.
Make a motion to extend it to the 4th. Common suggestion,
January.
January 4th.
A motion and a second. We need a roll call vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Sturgill?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson? Dr. Ratliff?
Yes.
Ms. Wyatt?
Yes.
Ms. Deal?
Yes.
Mr. Paul?
Yes.
Okay, that concludes the new business. Now we have the county attorney's report.
Madam Chairman, on the agenda, you know, the information in the packet is just your rules of procedure. I talked to Mr. Up about the rules of procedure, and it's just good for you guys to see that before you adopt it in January and review it. I think now is a good time to review those rules. If you see something that you would like to change, maybe send an email to Sean, and, you know, he can make a list of those changes and maybe do a draft amendments or something. One thing that Sean pointed out to me that he noticed is the rules call for a closed session at 4 p.m. I think at least half the year, if not most of the year, we've been having those closed sessions at the end of the meeting. You know, let everybody take care of the business, and your start time stays the same no matter what. That's just my opinion. You may consider about the voice voting, especially if you're starting to meet some electronically. You may just want to voice vote for everything and get in the habit of doing that, so you don't have to know, oh, this is an ordinance, we got a voice vote versus not. That's up to you all, of course. As well as, the only other comment I have about it is at the first meeting in January, you also set your scheduled meetings for the year. So if someone has a recommendation about start times or days or whatever to discuss with the board, now's the time, or between now and January is the time to talk about how you want to change that. I know from my experience here, it appears that you guys at least half the time have a second meeting. And it's not scheduled, right? You recess or you call a special meeting. You may want to just, as part of your meeting plan, to say, we're going to meet the second Tuesday and the fourth Thursday of every month. And then if there's no business to be conducted, I think that can just be canceled with the administrator, the chairman kind of saying there's no business to conduct, let's cancel this meeting, and then give out notices. But then it's a set regular meeting, and you don't have to worry about calling special meetings on the fly. in my own opinion is too, that it gives the county another opportunity to conduct business. That you don't have to wait 4 weeks before you can pay a bill, 4 weeks to make a decision to proceed on something. Government's still slow in action, but if you had that extra meeting, it would give you that opportunity to move a little bit faster if you were trying to pursue some kind of project. So those are just a couple of thoughts I had on the rules. I had some notes I discussed with Sean when he first started working. I need to review those again, but the purpose of the information in the packet is for you guys to review them and make any comments you may want to make about the changes in the rules. And then Sean or someone can draft a new version for January for you to adopt, or consider adopting. And if we have to make changes at that point, we can do it and come back the next meeting and adopt them. I think that's okay too. So, any questions about that?
I think he's got a lot of good ideas.
Anything else for my report is just, I'm plugging away. I'm slower than I should be, as most attorneys probably are, but won't admit it. I work with Sean. If I feel there's something urgent from Sean, I try to take care of it right away. If you guys have the same concern about something needing urgent, please let me know. I'll try to put that on top of the pile and get it done quickly, so I can get that done. But I'm plugging away at my list, and I know Clegg's probably waiting on me to do stuff, and we're working on it. So we are working on that issue with the people parking on the road, the violation. We want to look at the court file from the previous action and figure out how to proceed. But I think Clegg gave the notice. We're about the 30 days up to where we can file some kind of action. We just need to determine what that is and how to proceed going forward. So that's my report, unless anyone has any questions.
No, I think this is good recommendations that got as far as our rules and procedures, that I would encourage everyone to go through these before our January meeting and send you any recommendations. It's a good time to revise. If that's all from Scott, then we have the county administrator staff report.
Okay, I'll be as brief as possible. You have a copy of narrative summary, and I only have 4 items to run by you. First one is, you'll remember at the last meeting, the board did approve doing a letter of support, basically a letter of support for our fire departments. I have a copy of the draft in that packet for you. Read through it, make sure you're happy with it. The goal of what I'd like to do is go ahead and have it out pretty soon. It's coming from Chair Wyatt and myself, so basically it's just a show of support to the fire departments. We're here to be partners. The second item is a little more in depth. You may remember maybe a month, 6 weeks ago, the budget committee recommended a tax refund for a qualified veteran for real estate taxes. After the next day, when I spoke with the Commissioner of Revenue, he informed me that veterans are automatic. So they're really, if a veteran qualifies for $10,000 refund, it's automatic. It's not necessarily that we can deny that. There are other refunds that are out there that through the past, it's been a practice that if it's under $1,000, that the commissioner and the treasurer can take care of that themselves. If it's over $1,000, then it requires the board of supervisors approval. State code has changed. It was $2,500 required, and that's moved up to $5,000. What the commissioner is requesting is moving the $1,000 to $2,500. That they can do anything under the $2,500. If it's more than that, he comes to the budget committee and the board of supervisors for approval. And at the same time, go ahead and formalize the veterans exemption, or the portion that's in state code. That's a shall, not a may. So that's a request from the Commissioner of Revenue. You have in there on the packet, on the summary, the last 4 years, what they budgeted, what they spent, and the number of refunds. They're averaging anywhere from $150 to $300 per refund. So it's not a huge amount of money. So I don't personally see any big deal in it, but I do want to.
Do you need a motion on that?
That would be a recommendation to change it from $1,000 to $2,500.
I make a motion to do that.
All right.
As recommended.
So we have a motion. Did you want to also just state that it's already?
Veterans would be automatic.
So is that okay
Yes.
to go there? Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote?
Mr. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Sturgill?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson?
Yes.
Dr. Ratliff?
Yes.
Ms. Wyatt?
Yes.
Ms. Deal?
Yes.
Mr. Call?
Yes.
Thank you. Next thing, Morrison Building, this building. The lease that was extended December 31st of last year runs out the end of this month. It was a one-year lease extension. We're also working with the Attorney General's office and the Department of General Services. We had a conference call yesterday with them, and their goal is to close on the purchase or the acquisition this month. However, we can't find in the minutes, we know the board has talked about it a lot, but there's not an authorizing resolution that basically says, we'll take the building and you authorize the county administrator to execute the documents. So in your packet, I think the last two pages, is a draft resolution that the state has signed off on, they're happy with. Our attorney created the resolution that basically says that 3.76 acres, we agree to accept the ownership. We know we need to work out some rights of ways and stuff like that, easements. But we do need this resolution adopted tonight. What I'd like to do is two actions. One is the recommendation for adopting the resolution to accept the property. And the second would be, just in case something happens and we don't get it closed this calendar year, to authorize me to execute a lease extension for at least 1 year or until acquisition occurs, whichever is shorter. I don't know if Mr. Farthing has anything else to add.
I'll make a motion that we accept the resolution.
Okay, so second. Roll call vote?
Mr. Atkins?
No.
Mr. Sturgill?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson?
Yes.
Mr. Ratliff? Dr. Ratliff?
Yes.
Ms. Wyatt? Ms. Wyatt?
Yes.
Ms. Deal?
Yes.
Mr. Call? Thank you.
Now you need the second.
I need to authorize me to execute a lease extension for up to a year or until the property is transferred, whichever is shorter.
So, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote?
Mr. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Sturgill?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson?
Yes.
Dr. Ratliff?
Yes.
Ms. Wyatt?
Yes.
Ms. Deal?
Yes.
Mr. Call?
Yes.
Last thing I have is just a huge thank you from the employees. We didn't tell the employees about the Christmas bonus. And it was a great surprise when they looked at their checking account, especially those that got the automatic deposit, when they saw it. And a couple of them were worried that we may have fouled up something, and they called to go ahead and confess that they received an extra check in their for Christmas. But I do want to make sure that everybody, the board, knows that the employees do appreciate that. And everyone I've talked to, I've made sure that they realize it was from the board. So that's the last thing I have, unless you have any questions.
No, I will make a comment. Some of the convenience stations have been very appreciative of the increase in their salary.
For a back problem, they even took my trash out of the truck.
Oh, wow.
Right.
And thank you, I forgot to mention that.
So
I've
it's
heard
well
some
deserved.
folks there too.
I made them quick to be known, I still would be spearheaded to begin with.
Well, thank you very much.
That's why they fixed your frustrated.
Yeah.
Well, I think the employees do a great job and they certainly deserve everything that you're allowed to do for them. We now have supervisor comment time. And Dr. Ratliff, how about if we start with you?
Okay, well, I guess a couple things I wanted to say is obviously the elephant in the room is the COVID virus. It is out there. Protect your family. Be responsible, wear your masks. Also, the vaccine is in the news. It is being launched in Britain as we speak. It's expected to be in the United States here probably after the first year. But here's the reality. The average Joe probably won't see it until May or June. That's the kind of lag it's going to take to get it ramped up to production to this amount. So be cautious. Continue the precautionary steps to protect yourself, protect your family, protect your neighbors, and we'll weather this storm and come out the other side. And that's all I have to say at the moment.
Great advice. Thank you, Dr. Ratliff.
If I may, and following off of Dr. Ratliff's comments, at your dais, you have a summary sheet from Mr. Crawford, and Dr. Ratliff and Ms. Deal will get that emailed over to you. It's basically just an information sheet for COVID, current case, the case levels, and just a synopsis of what we're looking at right now countywide.
Ms. Steele.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I just have a couple things. One, just want to reiterate again our appreciation for Mr. Ron Thomason and his service and dedication to the Smyth County Tourism Office. And of course, we appreciate all he's done, not only with tourism, but also with Mayor Latt and his leadership there. And just as he said, putting Smyth County on the map, so we appreciate him doing that. The second item, I'm bringing this up as just some feedback from my fellow board members and from Mr. Utt. I have a constituent in my district who received a tax increase in this year's assessment. He did not, however, make any improvements to his property, and he had actually called me back at the beginning of the year when we were talking about doing an assessment, and he had asked me some specific information. Basically, from what I understood, unless you have made any improvements to your home, it should stay the same. For him, his property, or his taxes increased about $111. And he went before the Board of Equalization and kind of explained what was going on and presented his case. And ultimately what it kind of boils down to is when the reassessment was done in 2013, I believe that was the year it was done, the factor wasn't considered in to his house, but it was in his neighbor's. So what ultimately happened was it was kind of a mistake on our part and whoever did our assessment at that time. So this time when the reassessment happened, they realized that that had happened before and fixed it now. So he's pretty upset that that has happened. I'll just read a little bit of the email that he sent me. He agrees with the fact that we did not do a tax increase, obviously, because the 74 cents per hundred stayed the same. But the factor increase is what brought that $111 up. So his home actually decreased in value by $6,000, but when they added the 17.99% factor increase, that made his new factor value $98,400, which is where the $111 came from. So at the end of the day, he's not very satisfied with what the Board of Equalization agreed to, or actually determined. So I'm just curious if any others of you have had this happen in your district and kind of what your thoughts are.
I feel a lot of people were not unhappy. Wasn't there a lot of increase this year on people because of the percentage we took? Some of them went up $100, $200, mine did.
Yeah, mine did too.
You know, the percentage rate we done, and I get what you're talking about. It's not maybe the same thing, but, you know, I don't know that people in here expressing it. I think everybody's
It sounds to me like he's just catching up to where he should be.
Yeah, one thing to look at is he enjoyed 6 years without that increase.
Yeah, didn't charge him no interest or penalty.
Yeah, if we can maybe just talk about, I wasn't really sure how how to move forward, because I wanna help him out, obviously, but I don't know kind of where to go from here.
He has the right
It's
to
a new
appeal
one
that
for
to the
me.
court, doesn't he?
I talked to the commissioner's office,
He does have a right.
and they kind of explained the standpoint of the Board of Equalization, but again, it kind of wasn't his fault, I guess.
So Ms. Steele, the process would be having him appeal to the circuit court. I can, if you want to get with me tomorrow morning, I can help you through that. I think there's even a form online that we can fill out.
Okay, perfect. I'll touch base with you in the morning on that then. So that's all I have with that. And then lastly, thank you for allowing us to join virtually. I kind of wanted to test our new equipment, so I think Mr. Ratliff and I have made some notes, that we'll give that feedback. Because I think moving forward, we may have some more virtual meetings based on the way our COVID numbers are increasing. So thank you all. Stay safe, stay well, and if I don't see you before, Merry Christmas to everybody.
Mr. Atkins?
Don't have much, but what Lori said there made me, do I need to use turn this thing on? I don't have much, but the one item I got is sort of time sensitive, and Lori made me think about it. Right now, we're on a 6-year reassessment here in Smyth County. I would think we need to look at going to a 4-year reassessment if we stay on 6 years, that means once we get out a little ways, we're 6 years. The economy improves, the economy just skyrockets. We can't go in and say we want to do a reassessment. We got to wait 6 years. If we change to a 4-year reassessment, and then 3 years from now, 4 years from now, the economy improves or doesn't improve, we can say, we're not going to do it this year. We'll kick it down the road and do it next year. If that don't work, we can kick it down the road and we can still be on a 6-year reassessment by kicking it.
We don't have to do 6, do we? We
No.
can do
Not right now, we can't.
less than that if we want.
No.
I think the board would need to pass a resolution moving it to a 4-year
Has to
reassessment.
be for 6.
Yes.
You can do it earlier.
You can do it 4. Well, upon resolution, we can do it earlier than 6. The current resolution basically says we're on the 6-year side, so we can draft a resolution if board wants.
But we voted to stay on the 6-year plan, so we can't do it early. We've got to do it 6 years unless we vote now, very quickly, we're on a time sensitive, to change the 4-year reassessment.
And then if we decide not to do it at 4 years, we can still.
We can move it back to 5 or 6.
It gives that option.
We don't change our 4-year, we just say we're not doing it this year, but we have to do it every 6 years. And I'd just like to see us at least look at it and go to a 4-year.
I'd be glad to put something on the January agenda.
And other than that, everybody stay safe, have a nice Christmas. It's going to be different this year, as everything else this year has been, and I will say this little joke just to end it. I don't know how many of you remember the movie Back to the Future, where they had the little time thing where you dialed in where you wanted to. I don't know where it was on Facebook or where it was, but I saw it somewhere they had that little time thing there, a little post-it note next to it said, whatever you do not enter 2020. That's sort of the way I feel.
Me too.
I think we all do.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Hall?
Yes, Madam Chairman, you actually stirred my curiosity, and I agree with what you say about the library. I also agree with Chart. We need to see more of the financials of that. That scared me when you mentioned inside. I do not want to go through that again.
No.
I think we should get financial reports. We should get all the information possible on revenues, outgoing, ingoing, personnel at all the libraries. If this comes around again, I think, excuse me, I've got allergies, I don't have any. But if this comes down again, I think this board should look at the libraries going on the towns. Let the town handle their library, let the county give them the money the way they got, according to how they need it to function with the activities they got, and let the towns handle it and get it out of this board's hands before it turns into something real bad. I think they should look about it, solve. I get good information from them, I get good from Shell High, everybody's happy, then I hear possible insolvent. It scares me. to go through that, even bringing it up, if it don't line up to be true, it still sends vibes out there to the community. And the very reason that I voted to put you in that chair was transparency. I like your idea on transparency. That's what we need. When we get it out, this board could end up in a lawsuit or anything over the library. They don't need that again. We went through that once. So I think we should think serious about it. I think we should talk to the towns. I have full intentions of talking to Mayor Stahl, Mr. Young, see what they think about it, and go from there, let them do it. Of course, the only back problem probably you call it would be Marion would have to find another building, because that's a county building. They would have to furnish the building the way the town of Salvo does, the way the town of Chilhowee does. The town should elect their own board members, their own board, run their own libraries. I think we need to look at that, and we need to look at it seriously, because it's getting to be a bad issue again. Other than that, I hope all you stay healthy. God bless each and every one of you, and I look forward to seeing you at the next meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Phil.
You're welcome.
I think there were some administrative issues in the past, the library. I can't address all of those. There is a new library director. I understand she's very well qualified. She was a diplomat. She hoped to be here tonight, but because of COVID, chose to not attend because of limiting the numbers. But she comes very well qualified. I think we're extremely fortunate to have her. I think she's got her hands full there and evaluating everything, but I'm very confident that she will. And I think that we'll have more concrete information to make decisions on.
One thing I'd like to add, if you don't mind, that's
Sure.
I'd like for this board to see all that information, plus personnel information, job descriptions, and see if there's anywhere anything can be trimmed or fixed, not necessarily to get rid of people, but fix it where they can do multiple tasks, be cross-trained in doing stuff, and make everybody happy.
I think that's great. I can't speak for her. I look forward to her being here and presenting to the board. I understand that she really has some challenges there. She's walked into a situation where there are no job descriptions. Records have been destroyed. Important records required at the Library of Virginia. So there's some things to address moving forward, but I do think she will be the person to take care of it. And we'll move from there. I personally would like to thank each member of this board for all their support during this year. It's been a really tough year. We're thankful to have Sean. We're thankful to have a new county attorney this year. And I think we've worked well together. We've had a lot of challenges, but I think we've made a lot of progress. I look forward to even more next year with the guidance and leadership and cooperation. Again, I reiterate the thoughts about staying safe. We certainly are in a crisis with COVID. And just pray that all of us stay safe and healthy in our families, and that we all have a nice and safe holiday. So, thank you. Mr. Stevenson.
I'm going to echo what Mr. Collins said. I'm not going to go through it all. And I'm glad you have confidence in her. I still think accountability, whether it's a library or whether it's county administrator or whether it's whatever it is, there ought to be accountability and clarity to it. I think it's a real good idea to let each town have their own library. That's a pretty good idea. But, if we're in trouble, then I like to know stuff too. It's just like the grants. I have no problem with a grant, but I like to see everything on paper and see everything dotted. That's my job. That's why I was elected for. You touched on one more thing, and I think the county needs to multitask more. I think one person needs to do a little more multitask. And, I get hated a whole lot for saying what's on my mind, but I'll give you one example. And nothing against you. You might be our new emergency coordinator. I don't know who you are. But,
911 and emergency coordinator, in my opinion, should have went hand in hand. I think we can save money by it, but I think everybody ought to be able to show where they're spending, what they're doing. I want to thank the safety committee for what Lori said. It kind of impressed me. They out involved in the community and trying to find the right ideal to solve a problem. That's how you solve a problem. So I feel good about that. I don't know on assessments, Charlie. I'll have to study that. I don't understand all that. I don't want to see our taxpayers have to get reassessed every so often, the property value go up, or we hit them with another percentage. I don't like tax increases. And whether you say we had a tax increase or not, we had a tax increase. We had a public hearing on it. It was a tax increase. $700-some-thousand or whatever is what would come out of it. So, and then you get people unhappy like, Lord, I'm a conservative. I believe you save all you can save. So, but Roscoe, I echo it, and Charlie, I ain't against your thing. I just need to understand it, what's best for the people. That's what I'm here for, not to collect more revenue. Thank you, Madam Chairman. I don't know what January holds. I will compliment you. I think you've done a real good job as being chairperson.
I'm ready to turn the gavel over to the next person.
I would have liked to turn my gavel over, but I'm running against it, Anyway, and Laura, you've done a good job as vice chair, so thank y'all.
I know we have on the agenda a session, but obviously we're not going to do that. Is that correct?
Did you?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr.
I'm so sorry. I apologize.
I'll see where I rank. I couldn't resist. Mine will be short and sweet. I'd just like to reiterate what Lori said about Ron Thomason. I did coach Ron's sons in high school at Mary, and he was always a great supporter as a businessman, and also the job he did in tourism. And I commend him, and I really think he's a great attribute to our county in a lot of ways. Also, I want to say, I reiterate what Chris was talking about with COVID. I have a good friend who is a professional colleague of mine in the school system whose wife contacted it, and she's a teacher in another school system, and she is in intensive care on a ventilator. No health problems at all, and she's been on a ventilator now for 8 or 9 days. And so if anybody thinks the COVID's not real, they just need to talk to him, because it's unreal what he's gone through the last week and a half with her. I'd also like to thank all of you all for letting me come into the board this year, mid-year, and I appreciate it. It's a learning curve for me, and learning the processes and what you all do. And every meeting I gain a little more knowledge. Also, I'd like to say I look forward to the new year. I know the challenges of the new year will be many, and all of us look forward to the return of normalcy in our lives. And I hope and pray for the safety of everyone. And I wish everyone a very safe and happy New Year's and a very Merry Christmas.
Thank you so much. Okay, Sean, is that great? We're not going to do closed session.
Yes, ma'am. Originally, I had intended to need a closed session for tonight. I'm not prepared for that, so it can certainly wait until the January meeting, so we don't have to worry about that tonight.
Again, the most important motion is tonight.
I'll move to adjourn.
Is there a second? I don't think we need a roll call on that. All in favor? Aye.
Get your gavel ready, Lord.